You are watching The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, your escape to reality.
You guys missed Jay sneeze.
Oh, they didn't hear that?
Well, no, I think TikTok heard it, but I don't think YouTube heard it.
Who is that guy?
Oh, that's that guy. You know, David Ick.
David Ick?
We'll get to him.
Is he icky?
He's very icky. He's icky sticky.
Ian, let me ask you a question here.
Lord. Okay.
Once you have kids, right?
Sure.
Like, you can't go back after that.
I don't think you can give them back, as far as I understand.
Right, okay, just checking.
Okay. Okay.
Not that I want
to call anybody about that.
No.
We heard it. TikTok heard it, and I think Discord heard it.
Heard me say that about my kids?
Yes, that and.
Oh, you're a kid. I wasn't theoretically talking about my kids.
No. Just any kids. Just kids in general.
So what do we? What's on the agenda today? I just want everyone to know, whatever I'm talking about here, Ian is hitting it with me. I haven't watched it. I don't know what we're gonna do.
Yeah, it's brand new. And also, welcome to the YouTubes and also Twitch and Facebook, because we're streaming there as well, which is a Wednesday stream. People were confused. They're like, "What is happening on a Wednesday?"
Okay, we got
It's
YouTube,
happening.
Facebook.
Did not hear the sneeze. I know YouTube. YouTube, Facebook, and
Twitch. Okay.
And TikTok.
And
Discord.
Wow, that's
So
a lot, man.
Everywhere. We're streaming all the places that we can, and whether people want it or not. I think.
All right, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the chats come in.
The chat there. Let me get the TikTok chat as well. That way you can really yell at people.
Can you add everything in on one thing?
I can't add it to that one, unfortunately, because I'm not streaming.
So what are we going to prioritize?
I'm gonna just split screen it. But
okay.
We'll do both. We'll do a little bit of both.
Somebody said they can't wait for the weekend. Is this weekend?
Yes.
What's this weekend?
It's the weekend.
Oh, just in general. Okay,
in
I thought something was going on and I didn't know about it.
They just like the weekend. Maybe they like the band The Weekend.
Somebody's awake in Australia and it's 4 a.m.
4 a.m.
Why are you awake?
Why are you?
I'm often awake at 4 a.m.
Yeah, that's true.
I get I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I got so much,
Yeah. We're skepticing on a Wednesday. Yeah, so you're going to see us do the TikToks live.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys all about? I'm tired of waiting for you guys to say something that's coherent. What?
All right. Let me explain to you what we're all about.
Yeah, you better watch it.
We're just warming up here. We're just logging in. We're not diving into content just yet. We're giving people a minute to get here. People that watch us weekly know that we come on right around noon, around this time.
That's true.
I understand. I understand how you feel, man, because because of my cell phone and social media, like my My attention span is about 15 seconds at this point, so I totally get it.
Yep.
But sometimes you got to wait for the good stuff.
Okay, well, here comes the good stuff. So just as people are just cycling in, why don't we do a quick game?
Hey, dude, if you don't like it, you could just go. I mean, I'm
There's
not
that
keeping you here.
So nothing but a word salad. You're a word salad. Also, your mom's a word salad. Thank you so much. Here we go. We're playing a quick game of Food Guesser. Okay? If anybody's played Food Guesser, we're going to just do the daily Food Guesser as people are coming in. This is a game where you guess what food is from what country.
Oh, I know what that is.
Yeah, what is that?
That is, can I say it?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, that's a tea
Right.
that comes from South America.
South America. So it's yerba mate, it's got hot water, sugar
Yep.
are the ingredients. There's no description as of yet. So what country does everybody think in the chat? Or Jay, what do you think?
Patagonia.
Patagonia. Isn't that a jacket? No, that's not a. Is that a thing? Is that a?
It's a place.
Yeah, okay, what country though?
Um,
What country do you think that is? Oh, we got Steve in the building. Steve, what country is this food from?
Will we be streaming?
Yeah, we're
yeah,
streaming
right
already.
there. That thing. It's tea, basically.
It's yerba mate.
It's definitely from South America.
Yeah.
Rooibos from South America, which is
Rooibos.
red.
So, but South America is a continent.
No,
so
I
what
mean,
country?
I've
I'm
seen,
thinking South Africa.
Oh, South Africa.
You said South America.
It's from
Why do
South
you say South America?
I have my reasons.
Okay. So we'll say South Africa. No, it's not South Africa. You're cold. Also, it says.
No, I said it's not South
Oh,
Africa.
not
That was
South
my
Africa.
point.
Oh, well, there you go. Argentina. Okay, Argentina. We converted the person who was mad at us.
All right, good.
Argentina.
Now we're here. We're
Now
flowing
we're-
now.
But it's some kind of tea. I'll say the Philippines.
It is. You could actually order that tea.
We'll give Steve a guess of the Philippines.
It's not the Philippines.
Ice cold.
It's not the Philippines.
Argentina. We got a couple Argentinas.
Mate. It's Steve. Where is Patagonia?
In South America.
Yeah, but where?
Peru?
It's Peru. I think it's Peru.
Is Peru?
Do you guys Patagonian tea?
I'm going to tell you, it's not Peru.
It's not Peru. I'm
But
close
it's
though.
warm. Yeah,
I'm
it's
close.
South Africa. Okay.
I know. I absolutely.
South America.
South America, not
Oh,
South
sorry.
Africa.
No, I said, no, you did
Now
it
I'm
too.
flipped. Now I'm backwards. South America.
I'm trying to picture it in my head, and I'm like, what am I? I'm drawing a blank here. Is it in Brazil?
Is it in the rainforest?
Let's look. Let's see.
It's not in the
Brazil?
rainforest.
It's Brazil.
All
Well,
right.
it's Argentina, which
Yeah.
chat was going for, which is good for you, chat. Bolivia, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay.
Okay.
So
I've tried that tea, by the way.
yeah, it's very like
It's kind of bitter.
yeah.
What's
mean-
it called?
Mate.
Yerba mate.
Oh.
Yeah,
Tea is
Very
better.
popular. You also like the straw that they use is very particular,
Right.
and the cups are supposed to be very.
Oh, that's how you
muddle
recognize
it.
it because of the
Yeah.
straw.
Yeah.
All right, we got two more, and then we'll get to the good stuff. Here we go.
That's brie.
That's
just
definitely
brie.
brie cheese,
Okay.
without a doubt.
This is not like a meal. Milk, salt, rennet, bacterial culture. What country?
Oh, well,
France?
Hold on a second. Slow your roll. Let's talk about this. Okay, money is on the line.
Give me a chance to think.
Um,
Why don't you scooch in?
This way?
brie cheese. The origin of brie cheese. You think France? I think England, UK.
No, it's brie cheese, not blue.
Brie, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's England.
Belgium?
Belgium. All right, we'll go Belgium first. Hot, but not
All right, we're close,
on
Steve.
it. You said England? Oh, wait. United Kingdom?
Dutch?
Yeah, there we go. Here we go. Watch this. See?
Hot also.
Hot.
What else is Dutch? Deutsch?
Deutschland.
We're doing icebreakers, okay?
Yes.
Luxembourg?
Warm up. A
Ooh,
little warm up.
Luxembourg. Let's do Luxembourg.
Yeah, because they make cheese.
I
there.
didn't pick France yet, right?
So I'm
Do
still
you want
hot.
to do France?
Sure.
Whatever.
Okay, it's France. It's almost certainly
All right.
France.
Yeah,
it's French.
as I said,
mean,
brie,
yeah,
France.
It's
Yeah.
French. Soft milk cheese. Okay.
French.
Okay, one more, and
Yeah,
then we'll
okay.
stop doing this bullshit.
Potato
oh my
chips?
God, what is this?
This comes from a country.
This is the worst. You know what country this is?
U.S.
Powdered onion soup, reduced cream, optional cream cheese, mayonnaise, Worcestershire
It's got to
sauce.
be the United States.
Yeah, it's the United States. There's no shot. Nobody eats this crap.
Yeah.
It's not the United States.
Wow, somebody
Oh
that
my
eats more
God.
processed food than us.
It's ice cold at the United States.
oh my god.
Okay, so there's a powdered onion soup, reduced cream, optional cream cheese, mayonnaise, Worcestershire sauce, lemon juice, parsley,
England.
vinegar. Okay,
all right,
England.
yeah, that's not a bad guess.
So
Steve.
United Kingdom.
Mhm.
No, ice
Wow.
cold. We are like on the wrong side of the world.
Whoa.
What?
How about
Chat.
China? Try China.
China. China.
Also
ice cold. Is it the Antarctic? I mean,
Wow.
it's like, where the frick is it? Chat. What are you
It's
telling us?
basically
I mean, we looking at potato chips or
sour
what?
cream
I think
potato
it's
chips.
potato chips.
It's ruffled potato
I mean,
chips.
what's like Canada, Australia? Yeah, but if it was
Try
Canada,
Australia.
Australia. Yeah, that's got to be as far.
I don't
away
know,
as
man.
possible. Cool.
Not that
Oh wait,
bad.
the name is kiwi onion dip.
Oh, New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand. There we go.
But Australia was cool.
That
Yeah.
should
New
have been-
Zealand
that
being
should
the
have been-
correct
that
answer.
That should have been
right
like
next to it.
the one step down from the best answer, for
Yeah,
Christ's
that one's
sake.
BS. These ones sucked. I'm sorry. Usually they're good.
That's a
These
fail.
ones were
That last
bad.
one was a
Yeah,
that
fail.
was a bad
no
one.
good.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Now let's get to the actual.
All right, let's
meat.
watch a video.
Oh, let's watch a video. Okay, here we go. So, as you know, chatters, you send us in videos, and we have a bunch of weird stuff that pops up on our feed that in our mentions. Let me make Jay larger because he's
I'm
all
small.
squished. I don't know why he's so squished. Why are you so squished? Stand by, everybody. Keep talk amongst yourself. I'll give you a topic.
Thoughts on asparagus? I
I
mean,
like asparagus.
one of the best ways to make asparagus
Actually, no, this
is you get some prosciutto
Mhm.
and you wrap the top of the asparagus in it. Then you do salt and vinegar, salt and oil,
Yeah.
and you can bake it in the oven or grill it. Damn, that's really
Yeah, it's
good.
good. I've had
That's
that a
really
number of
good.
times. But just broiled asparagus is
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
We do
I
that.
agree.
Oh, yeah, the olive oil, drizzle it like olive oil, salt, and pepper.
Yeah.
Put it on the broiler, and you get
So were there if I
This
do,
fucking guy.
Yeah, this fucking guy. If I do any of the ones that you wanted to do for TikTok.
Nah, this guy's too stupid. I wasn't gonna do him. For
All right,
you
let's
guys.
so
do it.
this is a fun one.
Let's
to
watch
just do. Here we go.
This non-human realm was feeding off low vibrational energy. There's a scene in the first Matrix movie where Morpheus holds up a battery and says, the Matrix is a computer-generated dream world designed to turn humans into one of these, a battery. That is a profound statement in an apparently fictional movie.
Well, we saw the kids version in Monsters Inc. as well.
But that was another one. You had the monster world, where the key monster was a green entity with one single massive eye. I mean, that's telling you, isn't it? What happened is that in the
Hold
monster
on.
world, they had no...
What is it telling us in it first?
I think it's telling, like
Yeah, like what?
To him it's profound, It has a single eye.
Oh.
It must mean something.
Sure.
Like the eye on the pyramid of the dollar bill. Is that
Yeah.
what it's called?
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I see.
Hey, it's all connected.
The
It's all
Illuminati.
coming
All
out.
connected.
It's all coming out
All
now.
coming out now.
Because that's how the Illuminati works, Ian. You know,
Oh.
is they give subtle clues in children's movies
Mm.
because of reasons.
Sure.
You know,
Well,
Of
because if you're
course.
going to secretly run the world, you have to
Right.
tease reality
mm-hmm.
in kids' movies.
Is this guy taking this somewhere though?
Yeah. I mean, he
no.
doesn't land anywhere.
No, he already did. He's basically saying that there is this other parallel universe that is feeding off of low vibrational energy from our universe, and he's just creating an analogy to the Matrix and Monsters
Inc.
Incorporated.
Yeah. So the basic problem here is that there is absolutely no evidence, no legitimate,
There's
reliable
nothing. It's
evidence.
just paranoid fantasies.
Yeah, these are just fantasies.
Yeah, I mean, he goes on, but it's kind of like the chatter said, word salad.
source of energy. And so in the power station, every day...
No, he's just describing the
monster
plot of Monsters. That's really all he's doing here.
But the music is
then
spoopy.
These doors would come, and when they walked
Yeah,
through
we
the
saw the
door,
movie.
they
But
would
he's got an
into the
English
child's
accent,
bedroom,
Steve.
And their
That's true.
job was to terrify
It
the
really is
child, so
weird
the
to me
child
that someone could watch a movie like Monsters Inc. and find it credible, like this, like going, yeah, they tapped into, so there's something there. There's something to that,
Mhm.
like
It's apparently fictional, Jay.
whatever. It's sad. I mean, that guy could be diagnosable for
Yeah,
Christ's
who
sake.
knows?
So that's,
Or a scam artist.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Or
that's
somewhere in
David
between.
Icke, right? The guy who's been around forever saying, like, the queen is a lizard, which, who knows. But, like, the royal family are some transcendent...
Oh, he's a
lizard race.
reptilian.
Oh, reptilian.
World
That's right.
order conspiracy.
Yes.
He's also a Holocaust denier, right?
Oh, yeah. No.
It is fascinating, though, that it is fascinating, though, that people, they can so easily jump to these utterly extreme conclusions. It's kind of scary too, right? Because, to people like us, the amount of proof that we would need to believe something like that is huge. Like, it would be a very difficult, unbelievably difficult thing.
Well, that's the deeper question. So, I mean, there's no question that some people have a habit of thinking in conspiratorial manner, right? That is their style of thought. And they are all-purpose conspiracy theorists. That, their brain basically isn't working correctly. And the question is actually, what is their major malfunction, right? What is it that's going wrong in the reality testing process that our brains have that's leading them to thinking in this way habitually? So the major hypothesis is, that there, essentially there's this, again, this is a massive oversimplification, like anytime we're trying to schematically, describe how the brain works, but essentially our brains work in this context by seeking out patterns, right? And we have what's called hyperactive pattern recognition, right? Where, we kind of evolved for our brains to detect more patterns than exist, than are real. Right. So like anything, any test, you have sensitivity and specificity, meaning, the more sensitive you make it, the more likely you are to pick up true positives, but then the more false positives you pick up. The more specific you make it, the less likely you are to pick up false positives, but then the more likely you are to miss true positives. And any detection system, has to have a balance between the sensitivity and specificity, right? As we call it in medicine, but it's true of anything. And our brains are the same thing. So our brains evolved a compromise between sensitivity and specificity in our pattern recognition algorithms, processes that are operating in our brain. And for whatever reason, we evolved to have way to the overactive pattern recognition side. So we have a lot of sensitivity and not a lot of specificity.
Right.
But then, and part of the reason, the thinking is, the reason why we were able to function is because we also have reality testing circuitry, right? So we over-detect patterns, and then we filter out the ones that are likely not to be true.
Oh, so that's the catch.
That's the catch.
Right.
So that's that. And if both of those systems are working well, that's a good system. You think about it, right? You get the best of both worlds. You get a highly sensitive detection with a highly specific testing at the back end. And that's often how we do it in medicine too. Like, we have some highly sensitive screening test, and if it's positive, we have a highly specific follow-up test.
So
right?
you're saying it's likely
As
that
a basic logical thing that works well.
Yeah, that most people have functioning. But that you think that people like him potentially could have one of these out of whack.
Yeah, so the question is, do they have even more hyperactive pattern recognition, or do they have dysfunctional reality testing? Or is it just people who have some combination of both? You get over a certain line. It's a continuum. You take the balance of these two systems, and people basically exist on a spectrum of how prone they are to believing false patterns. And conspiracy thinkers are way to that one side where they believe every pattern that they see. But it's still, the question was, are they more likely to see patterns than somebody who isn't a conspiracy theorist, or they just have really impaired reality testing?
Yeah.
And it seems like it's mainly impaired reality testing is the problem. Which kind of makes sense, because we're already kind of hyperactive pattern recognizers.
So in a way, you almost can feel sorry for the guy.
It's just the way their brain works.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not that he chose to go down that path.
Right.
In a sense. Like, his brain is basically telling him that this stuff is legitimate.
Yeah, but we're all adults, and once we become adults, at some point we have to take responsibility for ourselves. And part of that is knowing yourself, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, having some kind of insight, and then fixing it, or just compensating for it, or recognizing it, so that you're not just riding the wave. You know what I mean? So, but the problem, I think, with conspiracy theorists, like these extreme conspiracy thinkers, is, first of all, it's, in many people, it's a suite of cognitive styles. It's not one cognitive style. They're also more intuitive thinkers, less, analytical thinkers, for example.
Right.
That their suite of intellectual styles make it really difficult to do what I just said, to then self-examine and say, well, maybe I'm just like really prone to believing in conspiracies and I have to consciously make an effort to pull myself back. They're really bad at that. Almost part of the syndrome is that they're bad at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are kind of locked in. And so yeah, we've all encountered people like this, and obviously online, many more, that are just, man, there's even the potential, to interpret something in a conspiratorial way. They're all in, and it's so compelling to them. And if you don't see it, then you're a rube, right? You're the sheeple, because you're not seeing behind the curtain the way they are. And also the positive feedback they get for thinking that they've peeked behind the curtain is massive. Think about the massive dopamine jolt you get. We've all experienced this too. Have you ever played any kind of game, where you have to figure something out, and when the pieces fall into place and you figure out the puzzle, it's really a massive dopamine hit, right? It's really now imagine if that's like all the time that's happening to you.
Yeah, I mean, you can get similar dopamine hits by playing video games, and accomplishing things that way. I mean, it's sad. I feel bad for those people. It's as much as like
I do as well.
It's good for us to, as a critical thinker, as people who understand the way our brain fails us and how we could be fooled by our own thinking. We have to on some level feel bad for people that are kind of trapped in their own paradigm. Like there's no way for them to get out of it. You'll never talk about. It's like I talked to.
Don't say never, because the thing is, our brains also have frontal lobe executive function, and there's no reason to think that their executive function isn't working. Yeah, and so they can, if consciously, apply a layer of critical thinking on top of it.
Sure.
And
this doesn't happen that often. Okay?
Yeah, it's a continuum. It's like how people get so far into the conspiratorial thinking, it becomes almost impossible for them to be able to do that. But there's a lot of people everywhere along that continuum, Jay, right? And I do think that there are people who are fantasy prone or conspiracy prone or intuitive prone who can learn critical thinking skills and layer that on top and compensate for their tendencies. Not everyone who's a skeptic was born skeptical. In other words, there were some people say like, oh yeah, I never believe that kind of stuff. It just doesn't. I don't get it. I don't get why people believe in magic or religion or conspiracy. They just don't get it. Their brain doesn't function that way. Other people like, yeah, I believed all that when I was younger. And then I learned science and critical thinking, and now I have to like consciously. Yeah,
and I think those people were information compromised, but not neurologically compromised.
Well, there's also the issue of, were they raised that way, or was this the predisposition in their hard wiring?
Yeah, I mean, we know someone that lived in a Hasidic culture, was completely steeped in it, and everything about their life, every detail about their life was told, you got to do this way and live this way and think this way. And he broke out of it, and it was an unbelievable feat to do it, and it was debilitating. Like there are people who are born in situations where otherwise they would have been critical thinkers or been science enthusiasts or whatever, but they're trapped. And they don't get the information.
But I know people who were raised in very uncritical environments, and then when they got to adulthood, basically got themselves out of it. Because they were probably analytical thinkers. Naturally had the predisposition to think logically and analytically, and the belief system that was being imprinted upon them didn't stick.
It didn't work.
That's
common.
It rested very lightly on their frontal lobes, and then once they were just able to like really get away from that and think for themselves, it started to fall away. I often think of us because like when we were younger, we believed a lot of pseudoscience.
UFOs, man. Totally
UFOs, ESP, Bermuda Triangle, Bigfoot, because we were young, and it was, to us, it was indistinguishable from regular science because that's what the TV was telling us. And we always talk about, Spock on
In
Search of, and it was like, oh, this is all like the same thing. It was but we pretty quickly got out of it as soon as we got like any reasonable higher education in science and logic and whatnot. But it fell away by our early 20s.
It wasn't quick. And to really get there, to really
That took years.
yeah, it took a long time to learn critical thinking. I
Yeah.
mean, when we started to learn about critical thinking, that's when the puzzle pieces started to really fall.
Well,
in
then
place.
it kind of accelerated, but there was this. The initial process was just learning about science, right? And then, but early on, when I was in high school, and learning about science, one of the first things I encountered on the pseudoscientific end was creationism. To me, that was my gateway into skepticism, right?
Yep.
Because then it's like, all right, wait a minute. There are people who don't believe we evolved. How is this possible? Explain this to me. How could you not? I mean, look at the bones.
Yeah, I
There's
know.
so many
It's like-
fossils. There's so much as overwhelming evidence. And what are they saying? And the stuff that the creationists were saying was like downright stupid. It was partly just factually incorrect. A lot of it was just scientifically illiterate, like grotesquely scientifically illiterate. And often it didn't even make internal logical sense. And that became this long-term fascination for me, is how are these people fooling themselves into denying, a rock-solid science? And that's like a lot of the pieces of critical thinking and skepticism are there in that just one topic.
Yep.
And then I think that led eventually to everything else. That, and also then Carl Sagan, who's the first one I've ever heard, first scientist to cast doubt on the whole UFO phenomenon. And once he said it, I was like, oh yeah, that, it was like tickling in the back of my head the whole time.
Absolutely.
It's like, I remember that feeling, like, wouldn't it be cool if we're being visited by aliens and there's so much, suggestive evidence and, photos right on the edge. But it definitely bothered me at a level that I don't think I was fully willing to look stark at, you know what I mean? But there's no home run, right?
Yeah.
There's no
Never.
definitive evidence. But for a while, I think everyone's bothered by that. But for a while, you're like, okay, but it must be right around the corner.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun.
Yeah,
it's also
it's like-
very entertaining.
And we were talking, what's going to happen when that undeniable evidence finally comes to light? We know it's got to be there because look at all this circumstantial evidence.
Yep.
And then, of course, it never comes. And then when someone pulls the rug out from the circumstantial evidence, that's all self-deception and bullshit. You're like, oh, if that goes away, that explains why we never had the the unavoidable evidence, like the rock solid evidence, and it all kind of fits. Like, oh, they're doing the same thing that the creationists are doing.
Yep.
And now I see it. And then the whole pseudoscience
Just
house
falls
of
away.
cards just starts collapsing one after another. And then at the end of the day, you're a hardcore skeptic.
Yeah, and that is an awakening. You know, I was in
Slow
my,
motion one, but yeah.
I was in my 20s, I think, when
Yeah.
that happened, and I remember I felt incredibly lucky,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt empowered. Like, wow, like seeing clearly for the first time
Yeah.
in my life, coming to those realizations. It's a great experience, but it's not easy to get there, man. A lot of people,
And it's a never-ending journey, as we say, right? It's not like if you ever think that you've arrived, that you are now a fully formed, complete skeptic. That's the ultimate deception, right? It is an endless struggle, endless journey. There's an infinite number of things to learn. There's always more nuance, more subtle ways that your thinking can be biased or flawed, and you're constantly refining it and making it more sophisticated and nuanced. But that's all we could do, right? You just keep trying to get better. But you're never going to get there.
What happened to you boys? Was it the science?
What's the science? That was Lorraine Warren. We're investigating the Warrens, and
How long ago was that? Like,
oh,
decades?
30 years?
20, 30, yeah.
Wow.
yeah, 1994, 5, 6, right?
They were the Haunting in Connecticut people?
Yep.
Or what? Yeah.
Yep. Amityville Horror.
Amityville Horror. That's
Yeah,
what it is,
one of their big things. They Ed really wanted us to validate,
Oh, he wanted your endorsement.
and endorse their bullshit. And Lorraine, I don't know if she was it's always hard. It was really hard to know, like, how much were they true believers, how much were they just crank old couple who found a fun way to make money off of their hobby. And Ed, there's so many reports of Ed committing pious fraud, where he does things to convince people that it's real, even though he's committing, conscious fraud. At one point, we're just we were being very friendly, very very nice. We were just saying we're just interested in seeing what the evidence is that you have. But we were clear that we don't believe in these things, because we don't think that the evidence is compelling. And at some point, Lorraine said, "What happened to you boys? Was it the science?" And what do you mean? I guess she to them, the fact that we lacked faith was such a critical failure.
Yeah.
She how could you have gone so horribly wrong that you don't believe in God? And Ed was that way too. I mean, to them, faith was an absolute unalloyed good. And if you were an atheist, you were the devil, which always, doesn't make internal logical sense. But to Ed, this is because he was not a sophisticated guy. He was what we would call in Connecticut a jamoke, right?
Yeah.
He was a very unsophisticated, not really very well educated, but overconfident guy. And he thought that atheism and Satanism were the same thing.
Yeah.
Which,
You couldn't
makes
tease those two
no
apart.
sense. Yeah.
And that's not that uncommon, they kind of go hand in hand. I've been listening to a lot of atheists, talk lately for some reason over the past month. And, it's interesting. I mean, when you hear somebody who has learned the Bible inside and out, understands it utterly and has quantified it, can tell you, how many times angels have been mentioned in the Bible and how many times, God, in the Old Testament, that God did horrible things and God's support of slavery and all this stuff. And then you hearing that person talk to true believers and then, kind of get them into a logic trap. I think you and I talked about this, Steve. Really, it's fascinating because I've come to realize, of course, I know I'm seeing a slice of this, but there's a lot of religious people out there that don't know the Bible.
Well, they don't, I mean, I think partly, because I've known a lot of people who were, in very religious, various kinds, mostly Christian, but, of other kinds as well, and have had very long conversations, about this with religious people. And I've been to their services, what they're getting, their exposure to their own religion is a highly selective, curated version of the Bible, right?
That's right.
It is not a scholarly, systematic, or thorough dealing of it or putting it into historical context or informing it with extra biblical sources or whatever. It's just, it's a faith-based approach to the Bible, right? And so they don't know the ugly bits or the self-contradictory bits. No one's pointing them out to them. So when you pointed out to them, they go, "I've never heard about that being in the Bible." Of course you haven't, because you're listening to a preacher who's telling you a narrative derived from the Bible, but not learning the Bible as a work of literature, So he said, so you really think that God, the Old Testament God, would send bears to kill and maul 40 children for calling his prophet Baldy? That's a God you'd want to worship, It's like, that Bible, that didn't happen in the Bible. It 100% happened in the Bible. It's, there's so many, that's not even the worst thing that God did in the Bible.
They'll deny it, they'll just flat out deny it. It's unreal.
Yeah. I mean, you've all been there, and you show it to them, then they have to, I have to find out about that. Then they come back with some rationalization, at some point, but then in the ultimate rationalization, well, that's the Old Testament God. The New Testament God is the God of Christianity. He's the good guy. So how does that work? Think about that. So the
major revision.
So
there's V2.
God, who was like an all-powerful, all-knowing, whatever, was an asshole for the first part of the Bible, and then, sent his son, which is really himself, to die for the sins of humanity. And so I'm going to start being a good guy now.
That's kind of.
It doesn't make any. Doesn't really. It's such an obvious retcon. That's the other thing. So much of religion is such a blatant retcon. That's why it's this kludge of mythology. It's because it isn't based on reality, on any kind of external reality, and it wasn't all written at once either. It evolved over time, often incorporating other belief systems, and so kind of just making it all kind of fit and work. And so you end up with this really ridiculous kind of mythology that you can't understand unless you know all the historical context.
I find it exactly the same as when you watch a bad movie
Mm-hmm.
and there's people that love it and they just come up with theories to make what happens in the movie. But they're but it's not just retconning. They're like propping it up, right?
Yeah.
They're saying, oh, this happened because of this, but it wasn't in the movie, wasn't in the text.
But then it becomes canon.
Yeah.
Because imagine, if that's like the Catholic Church, for example. It's like, well, it's not in the Bible, but they decided that that's what's happening, that babies who don't get baptized go to limbo or whatever, because that's how you make it all work. And then it becomes canon, right? Because the Catholic Church said that that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And then at some point they said pretty early on, these 4 books are real and all the other ones are heresy.
Yeah.
Why? Because
that's what they want.
That's the way it is. And then, but of course, all the stuff in the other books is like so contradictory to what's happening in the four books of the New Testament. It's again, like if you have any scholarly understanding of like what other people were believing and claiming at the time, like all the elements of Christianity are not new to Christianity. Some of the details are, but I mean, all the broad brushstrokes are all there before they were all. That's why personally, I'm not convinced that Jesus of Nazareth was a real person. He could have been, but there's no real reason to think that he was, is my opinion.
Well, there certainly isn't like profound historical information that says that. It seems that he's an amalgamation of a bunch of different people.
Or just, you start with the story and then the person emerges out of that, the belief in the person. Some historians make basically 2 arguments for why they think it's more likely than not that the New Testament was based on an actual person's life. One, and I disagree with their reasoning. I just think it's really weak lines of evidence, which is why I think I'm not convinced that that's enough for me to say, okay, then he probably actually existed. Not that it matters, by the way, in terms of anything else. But one is that the people at the time would never have crucified their own savior, right? Because that was like a really, not only a horrible way to die, it was a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like embarrassing, you know? It was like you would never humiliate your own Messiah that way. Although I think that kind of fits with Jesus' mojo, to be humiliated. And
I mean, it's a powerful story.
Yeah, right. So I don't buy that. And the other one is that, Jesus was supposed to be from Bethlehem. The Messiah, right, was supposed to be born in Bethlehem. But this guy, Jesus, was from Nazareth. So how did they make that work?
Yeah.
And then they retconned that so that, his parents were traveling to Bethlehem for a census, and that's when they gave birth to Jesus. So he was born even though his parents are from Nazareth, and he's Jesus of Nazareth, he was born in Bethlehem. So the prophecies all work. Yeah. And they wouldn't have had to do that, the argument goes, if they were making up out of whole cloth. They would have just said he was from Bethlehem. Yeah. Why have the whole travel to Bethlehem from Nazareth thing? But I think, that's a legitimate point. There's so many other interpretations of that.
Yep.
That it doesn't really make a compelling argument for Jesus being one real person, because if you under the idea that there's just this just milieu, there's just this stew of mythology and stories about people and prophets and whatever swirling around the Middle East at that time, and at some point something about this guy from Nazareth got incorporated into it, then they had to make that work at the end. Again, it doesn't mean it was one guy, that the story existed. But either way, the thing is, like, the Jesus of the New Testament certainly did not exist, right? How much of that narrative, that fictional character was informed by, how many of the actual prophets were wandering around the Middle East at that time, it's going to be impossible to reverse engineer, right, to figure out. But that's all they got. Those are the 2 lines of argument for why they think that Jesus probably really existed. There's no solid evidence. Yeah. There's no contemporary.
It's part of the faith. It's part of the faith.
Oh, but these are historians, right? These are biblical scholars, although they can have faith too. So then that's kind of often the mythologists, or I forget what the technical term, the people who think that Jesus didn't exist, will say, well, they only Christian scholars make those arguments. You know, that those aren't really solid historical arguments. Okay. But I sort of agree with that. I think that, they're not compelling arguments either way.
And there will always be historical, people who are basically, making excuses. They'll read history. They're apologists. They'll say, there is proof here, or whatever. I mean, this is why it's good to do some of the reading yourself and see the evidence for yourself. Like a perfectly good example, not to pivot to politics, and I promise we won't get into it.
Yeah.
But like I read the bills that come out now.
Yeah.
Because I want to know, and it sucks because it's painful reading. It's like reading a contract. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's not fun.
It's exactly like reading a contract.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and you could also read summaries of them, which are pretty reliable. But the bottom line is, it's good to know for yourself. It's good to be able to.
Yeah, it's always the deeper lesson is always go to primary sources. I can't tell you how many times people are arguing. And I'm like, yeah, do you have a source for that? And they give you a secondary source, like a secondary hostile source. It's like, well, just quoting some guy who believes what you do, who's making the same claim you are, isn't a source.
Yeah.
You've got to give me the primary source.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, but it's sometimes just laziness. It's easy just to, there's the reference, the first one that came up on Google, whatever you have in front of you. But it is, if you're really doing your research, meaning your literature research, you have to track back to the primary source.
Anybody, in my life's history of debates that I've been in and conversations that I've had, like I talk a lot about, I historically used to talk a lot about religion and belief, and my agnosticism, and in the last 5 years, I've been talking, or so, I've been talking a lot about politics, and what I've come to realize was 10 years ago, I didn't really understand how U.S. politics works. And now I feel like I have a very, very fluid, good understanding of how it works. And when I argue with people historically in my life about religion, they didn't understand their own religion. And when I argue with people about politics today, they don't understand their own government's way of working.
Right.
And it's frustrating because when people are saying things that are patently false, historically, like it's not hard to find out how bills are created in the United States and how that functions and how the two parties interact, and then the Senate and the House are involved, and then the president's involved, and there's, it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
But they have no clue about how this works.
It's just a big black box.
Yeah, and the same with religion. It's like, when you could talk to someone intelligently about their own religion, right? And to me, like the only real religion that I should even pretend to have good knowledge in is basically the Christian Bible, you know what I mean? Like that, Catholicism. In my life, I've found that most people don't really have a fluid understanding. Now, I know people who know it infinitely better than I do.
Yeah, there are scholars who know it
absolutely
as their like a PhD level understanding of the Bible as literature, of other relevant historical documents. I mean, I think a lot of people don't even know that there are other gospels, other than the four in the New Testament, and
but
they're
there's
just as legitimate historically as the four in the New Testament.
Yeah, but there's books, there's other books too that talk about other things about the religion. There's a lot of books out there that aren't part of the Bible and you were saying they're dismissed or they're ignored or whatever. And I guess where do you draw the line? It's hard. I don't really understand how the Bible came together. Weren't decisions basically made on what was going to be accepted and not accepted?
So
Nicene Council or something?
Well, the New Testament's easy because you had the Roman emperor who made Christianity the official religion of Rome. Basically, said these four gospels are the canon ones. So
okay.
These are legit, and
wasn't even the Pope.
Everything else is heresy.
Wasn't even the Pope that decided that, huh?
I mean, I don't know the details about exactly how that was decided, but there was
Constantine, right?
Yeah, Constantine. I know he was involved, but I don't know how much consultation there was with other people. But in a way it makes internal sense because you have the three so-called synoptic gospels, which are clearly sourced from the same thing, so they do fit each other really well. And then there's Mark's gospel, who's just really short. It's very different than the other three. In fact, mutually exclusive in terms of a lot of details. But So you could kind of make those four fit, and so saying that those four kind of work together ish makes sense, and then the other ones are really out in left field, like they just tell a very different story. Like Jesus is still there, it's still Jesus, but Jesus is a very different person in those other gospels.
You know what I find interesting? Like you made a great point earlier, Steve. Like I was brought up a Christian, went to Bible school. After school they send you down to the church and you go to Bible study. Sat through hours and hours and hours of church. My whole life. I didn't find out that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John weren't part of.
They weren't his apostles.
They weren't part of his crew, his 12 apostles.
Yeah.
That blew my mind when I found that out. Like, what do you mean? They were with him the whole time? No, these are people that were like 2 generations after the events that were supposed to take place in Jesus's time. That confounded me because I'm like, well, why would they be writing about it? Who are these people? Then I'm
Who
like,
are these people?
Yeah, I remember asking that question though. Like, what?
I went through that too. Like, you assume, like, it's a good assumption. The 12 guys, right? It's all common names, that we're here, biblical kind of New Testament names, and no one explicitly says that they were or weren't. You're going to assume that they were part of his crew, as you say, but no, that was 1-2 generations later. We're not even really sure who they are. They, and then they were telling, even to the other things. And we went to Bible class when we were getting confirmed. That's sort of within the church. Then we went to a Jesuit prep school. You didn't finish all 4 years there.
No, I did.
I took 4 years of theology at a Jesuit prep school.
Yeah.
So that was a very different approach, right, than the Bible study you get when you get confirmed. That was definitely a way more scholarly, historical approach to the Old and New Testament. It was still within the context of Christianity, right? They weren't telling us God didn't exist or anything, but it was just like, we were looking at it as literature. And that's when you who are these people? They're not. And even then, like, the Jesuits are the most sort of scholarly end of the spectrum within the Catholic faith. And so, although I understand that they're kind of on the wane within Catholicism, but anyway, they say things like, that's where I learned about like the synoptic gospels and, how you the fact that the Gospels are not history. Like, even they say, Jesuits say, like, the Gospels are not an attempt at recording history.
Yeah, they're lessons.
They are lessons. They are a narrative being told by a particular community from the perspective of their faith. This is like, all right, I'm going to tell you the story of our community's faith. And all the decisions that are made and the details that are included serve that function. It's like, why does one gospel give the lineage of Jesus, from Noah, and the other one doesn't? Like, one is like reinforcing that Jesus is a Jew, and the other is reinforcing that Jesus is a man, is a human, like represents all of humanity. Anyway, like, there's all that kind of stuff going on. But yeah, you don't learn that like in Bible class, right? That's the kind of stuff that's more of just, this is the tenets of our faith, and then you pull out these little snippets from the Bible that seem to be about that, but you're not really studying the Bible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I guess my summation is, like, for me not to know these really important pieces of information, it could be deliberate. It could not be deliberate. It could be, it just, I don't know what it is, but like, you will not get legitimate biblical instruction and information and understanding by going to church. That's not where you're going to learn about the Bible. That's the last place I would go.
You're going to learn about the faith they want you to learn about. Yeah.
All right, we got another video, Ian?
Yeah, we got a bunch more. Let's go back to our discussion page. Whoa. All right, let's see. There's nothing more
That's
to that
that
one.
guy.
That's ridiculous. So there's permanent free energy one. Were you going to do this, Steve, or no?
I was going to do the one about the guy who got killed for inventing water fuel.
Okay, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
I didn't do that one. So we have more chiropractic face cracks, which I think we did actually last week.
Did we
Yeah,
do the
you
face
don't
crack?
do that again.
Yeah, there's the free energy one, the Noah's Ark one.
Oh, this guy again?
This guy again, who kind of popularizes all kinds of stuff. Wisdom teeth are connected to your pineal gland. That's why they remove them, because they want to keep you dumb, which is kind of just silly. This one maybe is more fun because he's wacky. But don't drink H2. Well, let's just listen to the
Yeah, let's see what he has to
maybe
say.
see what we think.
You do not drink water. Dogs drink water. Camels drink water. Four-legged beasts drink water. Do you know in order to drink water scientifically, you will have to stand on all fours, you have to elongate your neck, and you have to lap the water with your tongue? Your tongue is not even long enough, and it don't have the type of muscles that other mammals have to even lap that water in. In order for you to drink water, you got to close your hands together, do this, you got to do everything but what you can do naturally with it to even drink this water. You getting water in cups and glasses. You weren't born with cups, glasses, and bowls, and none of that other shit. These are utensils that you make where you can assimilate other creatures, for you can start drinking these things, just like you make knives and you make forks because you don't have claws like a carnivore, and you make these knives and these forks but you can claw and rip and tear into flesh, showing you that you were not created to eat flesh. Same thing when it comes to water that comes out of wells and oceans and lakes. You were not made to drink that. If you was, then your neck and your digestive tract would be made a certain way. Your tongue would be elongated a certain way for it can lap and get that water in. Guess what? You ain't got to do that when you're eating your water. See, you're supposed to eat water. You're supposed to chew water. You're not supposed to drink water.
All right, that's maybe enough.
Wow,
Thoughts?
I'm kind of blown away. So because we can't drink water like animals that
Like quadrupeds.
like
do.
quadrupeds do, they have to like lower their heads to. I mean, wow, dude. Really? Like, I don't even know where to begin with this bullshit.
It's just it's stream of conscious nonsensical.
You got to eat your
Yes.
water. You got to chew your water. Why?
I don't know.
Why does it say H2O versus H3O2? What is that about above his head? I don't even get
So
that.
H3O2 apparently is structured water, which is not necessarily a scientific term apparently, and
No,
it's
it's
like
not.
it's like water in fruit essentially. You know, it's like that's why he says chew your water, because it's like you're supposed to eat it from like whatever fruit
Okay.
that has water.
All right. So, but the idea that we're not supposed
Oh,
to
hexagonal water. Sorry.
like he is against us drinking water from our hands. I mean, dude, really? This is what you're spending your goddamn time doing? This?
Yeah.
You're going to go on, you're going to put yourself on the internet. Here I go, Steve. You're going to put yourself on the internet, and your message to the world is don't drink fucking water? Jesus Christ, man. Seriously, go listen to a record. I don't know. Like, don't do that, because not only is it a waste of time, but you look like an idiot. Is this guy ever going to hear any of this I'm saying, Ian?
No, he's a big content creator. And
Oh, I'm
of
sure he
course,
is.
He sells, like supplements.
selling
and all that
something,
shit.
yeah.
He like does all that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, structured water is hexagonal water, so it's
Okay.
like the same. Anyway,
But it's frustrating because here we are, guys. Take a moment here, right? We live in a world now where everybody's got a platform.
Yeah.
I've said this many times. In order for Steve and I and the rest of the SGU to create our show, first off, it took a very, very intelligent person, Steve Novella, to conceptualize this show and to come up with it. But we have finally crafted this show and the way that we present the content and how we digest our information. It's not difficult to create good content. I mean, I'm sorry, it is very difficult to create
Where you
good content. It is very
very
easy.
difficult.
It's very easy to create nonsensical content. And I look at the world now, and we just like misinformation, there is a glut of horrible content. 99% of the content out there is not worth watching. And the fact that people buy into it, that guy's got a lot of viewers. That guy?
Yeah, but how many people are watching it just as a morbid curiosity of how dumb it is?
yeah,
Like we
that's
just did.
the segment.
Yeah, it's hard to
But
say.
but it really is disheartening because as a content creator who's been doing this for 20 years,
Well, there's no filter anymore. So, life is always a pyramid, right? There's any quality assessment, right? There's always a pyramid. You have like the excellence is a very tiny little exception at the very, very top, and then the lower you go in quality, the more
people
the more
do it,
people
yeah.
are at that level. So, and it's true in athletics and in art, in anything that any human endeavor. There's always going to be this pyramid of quality that we're dealing with. Now,
but the question
but
is,
classically, there was some kind of editorial filter in place where you couldn't, really get to a mass media level unless you filtered your way up the pyramid to certain level, right? But now the internet has removed all the filters, and so we're seeing the whole pyramid,
Yeah.
all the way down to the bottom. But it's worse than that because the internet has its own kind of filter in that it's not really a filter, but it has algorithms and it has feedback loops, right? That's replacing the filter. It's more of a bottom up rather than top down kind of approach. Or is it, an editor or whatever, an owner who's saying, yeah, this is good quality. This is what we're going to put forward. It's just whatever gets the most clicks, right? So it's this bottom up sort of organic process. But does that favor quality? Sometimes, but mostly it favors sensationalism, right?
Yeah.
So you end up with an inverted pyramid, basically, where the feedback loops are all favoring that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And
That's
people
that's what people are seeing.
Not only that, it's distorting the pyramid because there are people who maybe they're mediocre, they're in the middle of the pyramid somewhere, and they realize if they want to get clicks, they have two choices. They could get much better quality, or they could get sensational. Guess which is easier?
Yeah, of course.
Guess which is easier? Guess which also has a much more higher probability of working.
Yeah.
So people turn to the dark side.
Yeah.
And so
We're kind of programmed for that,
Yeah.
I mean, if I didn't have my skeptical thinking skills, I wonder where I would be in my life right now. But that video to me is a perfect microcosm of everything that is fucking wrong with social media and the internet.
What that means is we need to have our own filters in place.
Yeah,
And that's what our show is all about, right? So teaching critical thinking so that you have your own filters.
Don't rely on Facebook to help you
No.
filter out information that's appropriate for you and what you should be spending your precious time on. You need to do it yourself, is what Steve's saying. But I always, how I like to zoom out a little bit. Like, let's zoom out on that video, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, where did that information come from? Did that guy make it up? And what was his ultimate motivation too? Because I can't help but think about these things. That guy, to me, that's a sensationalist video.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't believe it.
Yeah.
It's all hype bullshit, and him being able to get on a soapbox to make it sound like he's saying something really important. They put the music on there, right, Ian?
Yeah.
That
does a lot.
It does, because it makes you, I'm hearing secret information or whatever. Like
it works. That's why every movie has a soundtrack.
So apparently hexagonal water is just a marketing term, and that's kind of what it originated
Yeah,
from.
structured water, whatever. It's all bullshit. It's none of it. That's not real physics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and drink water. It's really good for you. Water is really good to drink. Lots of
Oh
it.
my God.
We do get a lot of our water from food.
Sure.
That is true. That is true.
But a very simple gauge is just look at what color your urine is. Like if it's too dense, if it's too yellowish, too dark, drink more water. If your lips feel dry, you're not drinking enough. Like your body's telling you. You have ways of knowing. A good rule of thumb: drink 4 nice glasses of water every day, at the very least. The whole 8 glasses a day thing is bullshit, but you do need to hydrate your body because water is predominant in your body. You absolutely need to drink freaking water, you idiot. If I ate enough oranges to give me the water every day that I need, I would be taking in an amazing amount of sugar.
Yeah, you can't do it.
It's not good for you. I love watermelon. I really do. But like if I eat a lot of watermelon, boy, am I paying for it the next day. Like there's certain things, you don't want to take in that much fiber. No,
Yeah, I love
stop.
watermelons too.
Yeah, I heard that about you, Ian.
I know you do, Ian. Oh my God. We are at a point, Steve, where humans are saying to other humans, don't drink water. That's where we are now.
Yeah. I know, but you have to look at that. That's the noise in the background.
But it's real noise, though. It's noise that penetrates. It's noise that affects people.
Does it? I mean, how many people really believe?
Well,
He's got the views.
But that's not what I asked about. I asked how many people really believe that we don't have to drink water because we're not quadrupeds. I mean, I hope that number is very small.
Steve, I have always, throughout my life, said, I count on humanity not to believe this or that, and they have failed me every single time.
But if you look at it, though, if you look at the statistics, most of the time, most people don't believe the really dumb things, right? Those kind of really stupid beliefs are very, very small.
We're seeing it happen in the United States right now.
But it's a minority. It's because our politics is broken. It's not because the majority of people believe dumb things. It's because the minority is able to exert an outsized control on the political outcomes. We have to fix the political system, but unfortunately we can't do that because the political system is too broke to fix itself. So we're kind of stuck.
We're screwed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
on that light
Will,
Well, fluoride's fine.
we doing
talked
fluoride?
about fluoride.
we did. We talked about fluoride.
Yeah. The bottom line is, in the numbers that you're going to get exposed, either in fluoridated water and in dental products like toothpaste, whatever, it's well below safety limits. And I'm going to be doing a video. One of the videos I'm doing today is about aspartame and
Yeah.
sucralose. It's always the same story. But what's the dose?
Mm-hmm.
But what's the dose?
I know.
They only do it on rats.
Yeah.
Did you want to look at the frozen embryo thing, or is that a little too spicy?
Okay, what's the free? Yeah, we can watch
Oh,
that.
did we?
We did it last time, but this is a specific.
Yeah.
Remember, there was a carve out we were hoping, but this guy basically
I
says
think if you're getting in vitro
not a carve
fertilization,
out
it needs to
in a
be
way.
the
Hold on, let me get to the discussion page. Here we go. Here, let me full screen this.
This is a Missouri Republican.
embryos that are going to be implanted at that particular time. I know it's an expensive process, but
I
creating.
don't want to make fun of somebody's hair, but what is he doing with that hair? Can you see the little front?
Yeah, he's got a little doodad
got a
up
little
there,
doodad
man.
at the front. I mean, good for
this,
Go at
this
it.
huge inventory of life being frozen. I don't agree with it.
Does state law need to have something done about that, since we saw what happened in Alabama? Do we need something in law in Missouri to state one way or the other?
I think there needs to be clarification of how expansive they are in the process of creating those embryos.
Do you think it should be illegal to store embryos, and do you think it should be illegal to discard them?
Because a lot of times it's utilized for sort of research, development, and of embryos and tossing away life, and the storage of them. Yeah, I think it needs to be for that time. Again, I know it's an expensive process and could lead to failure, but at the same time, I think it's really reckless to create all these embryos and to freeze them.
I think that was the main point.
Yeah.
It's like we were hoping there was going to be a carve out, and it seems like he's not willing to have a carve out. You know what I mean?
But Alabama did.
Did
Who was
Alabama
that, by
do-
the way?
That was the Missouri Republican Senator,
Missouri.
Freedom Caucus chair.
There is a senator that doesn't think that people should have sex unless they're trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And that, my friends, is how The Handmaid's Tale comes into reality. Because we have religion significantly poking its head into our government.
Well, this is why there's freedom of religion, right? Because you can't legislate your own personal religious beliefs, but this is what they are overtly doing. So, what we could say about the frozen embryo thing is that the question is, so first of all, the people who are anti-abortion, right to life, they take a stance that the fertilized eggs, the embryos are human life.
Mm-hmm.
But they're already rigging the game right there, right?
Yeah.
That's called framing. Sometimes you can get the answer you want by framing a question a certain way. And actually there isn't any meaningful debate or discussion about whether or not a fertilized human embryo is human life. Yes, it's life, it's alive, it's human. Nobody doubts that. That's not the question. The question is whether or not it's a person. That's the question. Is a fertilized egg a person? And they never frame it that way because that's the actual question at hand. And they don't want to have that debate. They want to just win by default, right? So they change the question to a different one, which is actually, mostly irrelevant, or it's at least an insufficient question, right? Is it human life? It's human life, therefore, whatever they want to conclude from that. But actually the question is it a person? So then we get into having to define a person. What is a person, right? And the science does not answer this question for us because this is not even a scientific question. This is it's informed
philosophy.
by science, but this is a philosophical, moral, ethical question. So they're trying to avoid the fact that they are choosing to have a religious-based answer to an ethical question, which is fine for their own decision-making. For your own life.
Yeah, for your life.
If you think that that killing a fertilized egg is morally wrong,
Don't do it.
Then don't do it. But if you're going to tell other people not to do it, then you have to have a better reason than this is my personal religious belief.
Yeah.
Right? Your reasoning has to be a little bit deeper than that, or to answer the wrong question. See, if you're doing illogic and trying to make it into a scientific question, but you're doing it wrong, we could shoot that down, saying, well, it's human life. Yeah, but that's not the question, Senator. The question is it a person? Now, the Alabama State Supreme Court previously had decided that, so there's a law about, harming children, and previously they decided that unborn children are children, which is a bit of circular logic. Again, they're dodging the question of when, a fertilized egg becomes a person. They're just saying, well, it's an unborn child. And we're going to say that for the purpose of this law, unborn children are children. And then in the recent case, they're like, well, what if that unborn child is a frozen embryo in a vat? And they're saying, well, the law doesn't say that you're not a child if you're not in the womb. It doesn't specify location. So we're going to say that even frozen embryos are children. So, but based upon Alabama law.
Now,
right?
if we zoom out a little bit, hello? What am I hearing? Wow, that was really unexpected. Okay. What is the difference between a sperm fertilizing an egg?
Yeah.
That was weird, TikTok.
And the sperm and the egg being an inch apart? What's the difference?
Well, until they come together, you don't have a full person.
But they're right there, Steve. They're right next to each other.
It's the potential to become an individual.
But you know why I'm saying this?
Yeah.
Because they're going to take it to that level.
Well, they might, but you could also say that's a slippery slope argument. But so far, they've been pretty consistent in saying that the fertilized egg is when it happens. That's when the magic happens. That's when it's a person. But let's take them at that.
Okay,
right? That's what they're saying.
Okay.
You're arguing that they're going to send. You can't go to sperm and eggs though, because
Steve, we're not talking about people who are.
But anyway, there's no point in speculating about what they may do, which is like orders of magnitude, more ridiculous than what they're saying now. Let's deal with what they're saying right now, which is that a fertilized egg is a person. They're just assuming that's the case without arguing that that's the case by making an ancillary argument which nobody disputes but which is irrelevant to the point that they're trying to make, which is that a fertilized egg is a person. A frozen embryo in a vat is a person. So that doesn't make sense. But again, it comes down to how do you define persons. They're saying that a person is a single cell is a person if it has, if it's been fertilized and it has the potential to later become a person. So first of all, there's some arguments that we could dispense with. The potential to become something is not the same thing as being that thing, right? The potential to develop into a person doesn't mean you are already a person. I think it makes a lot of sense that something that it's a person has to have some kind of agency, has to have some kind of awareness of its own existence, should at least have a central nervous system. Before we consider it a person.
They don't want IVF to exist anymore. And this is going to lead to less babies being born.
I don't think they are against IVF. I think the chain is we don't want abortion. How can we get rid of abortion? We argue that a fertilized egg is a person, is a human being, right? It's a child. It's like, but if you do that, that means IVF can't function. They're willing to accept that as a consequence. But that wasn't the point in the first place. That's just an unintended consequence. And some of them are trying to have it both ways. So the Alabama legislature, both the House and the Senate in Alabama passed a law that they have to be reconciled and then signed by the governor, saying that regardless of all other Alabama law, IVF is okay, basically. So they're just again, they're sort of retconning it. They're just saying, all right, forget about the whole frozen embryos being people. We're not going to challenge that. We're not going to undo that. But we're going to say that despite that, we're going to carve out an exception for IVF, which is just a way of making it politically less painful, for their radical position, which is based on their religion.
They're trying
that a single cell is a person.
But they also push it a little bit, and before you know it, you know what I mean? Things have changed. I got to tell you a story. I've been pro-choice pretty much my whole life. Believing that women should have control of their bodies. There's circumstances where if someone is raped or whatever, and they become impregnated by their rapist.
Okay, grape.
Yeah, grape. Sorry. Sorry. Can't say that.
Grape.
So I went to the bodies exhibit about 20 years ago. We were in New York City. Remember we went whenever that was. It could have been even longer. And I saw in the bodies, this was the, what do you call plastination?
Yeah.
This is where they show you, they do this plastination thing to corpses, and they can show you the nervous system. And it's really, really incredible thing to see and very difficult. And I saw the stages of an embryo, from like, from where you have to look at it, under a microscope, to where you see like, where it starts to really look like a human being and all that. And I remember going, oh my God, right here, at this stage right here, that's a freaking person. That's a baby.
That's a baby.
And I said to myself, oh God, I'd hate to think that people would abort babies at this size, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm also going, but goddamn, it's not my life. It's not my body. It's not my, it's not my decision. People need to be able to make these types of decisions for themselves. The part of life, life is deadly. You know what I mean? Like it's a fucked up situation, but we're all in it. Like if a wait, let me just finish my thought though. Like if a 15-year-old girl is pregnant, we're going to tell her she has to have the baby, right? That's what these people want the government to do, is say, nope, you have to have the baby. Under no circumstance are you going to get an abortion. I just don't believe that. I think that people need to make their own choices.
But again, there's that's a personal belief, and that's ethical and morals. It's not scientific.
But neither is this thing.
I know that. I'm just saying. My point is that's my whole point. Is that the whole premise of the thing. This is an ethical, moral discussion.
Yeah.
It's informed by science, but science can't resolve it for us because it's what criteria are we choosing to value? So in the case of abortion, which is why it's such a contentious issue, you have two things which people take very seriously, and the stakes are very high. A woman's, ability to control their own life, and the life of an unborn person, right? So at some point, as you say, like it really starts to look like a person, like a human being, like a baby.
Now, I didn't know when I saw it that I don't know if there was a central nervous system there.
By then there was.
If there was a brain, okay.
What you're saying. But here's the thing. I have seen the results of abortions.
In person?
When I was going through medical school. So these is what we call a DNC, right? A dilation and curettage. That's the technical name for the procedure, where they remove the placenta and everything in it, And I've seen what the fetus looks like for a typical abortion. It's like this big. It looks like a little cashew. It does not look like a baby, right? Yeah. That's your typical stage at which abortion happens. But again, that's neither here nor there, really. I'm just saying it's very different than what your like emotional reaction to. Like that looks like a baby.
But philosophically, though,
it doesn't.
I'm
at the earlier stages.
I'm against it, right? I don't like it. I think energy should be spent putting contraception in people's hands, teaching them. It's you read the statistics on contraception, how effective teaching people about contraceptive is, and making it. But
as we know, it's not always about that. There are women who got pregnant deliberately who want to have a child, and then they find out that their pregnancy is being threatened or that the child is horribly
there's a disease or something,
sick or whatever. It's not viable, and they're being forced to carry a pregnancy that's not viable because of the anti-abortion laws, or they're saying, well, we were only going to make an exception if the life of the mother is being threatened, but now you have to wait until you can't make a medical decision about risks versus benefits. You have to wait until it's obvious that your life is at risk, which so they're interfering. They're interfering with medical decision making, which should be happening between a doctor and their patient, and for religious reasons. As somebody pointed out in the chat, part of why for some people they make fertilization the hard line in the sand is because that's when the soul is put in there, right? Which is, again, I'm not making fun of people who believe that. Believe whatever you want, have whatever religion or faith that you want, but if that's faith, you cannot impose that upon a democratic, free, pluralistic society. You can't tell everyone else, you have to now follow the dictates of my personal religious training.
I have just as much a right to say that there isn't a soul entering the baby there,
that's right,
as you have the right to say that there is. And both of them, whether one of them is based on science or not, so these religious opinions and beliefs that people have are seeping into. They've been a part of human culture forever. But, in the United States, when the United States was created, we had a separation of church and state. It was there to keep politics rational, right? And again, like, I don't want people to get abortions. I really don't. But I would never think about taking that away from, that's not a decision for a government to make. So let's go the other way, instead of putting all this energy into talking about this and passing these laws, let's educate the shit out of young
that's
people.
The other thing is that if they really cared, this is a complicated conversation now, and we are getting into politics. The whole anti-abortion thing really is a very modern political phenomenon. It really wasn't part of many Christian faiths before the 1970s, right?
Yeah.
There was a conscious decision to make this into a culture war wedge issue and to fire up the base and to make an alliance with the evangelicals around this issue. And it worked.
I get it. No,
it worked.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Right, but it wasn't really baked into their religion going back before then, but anyway, this is political exploitation, is what all of this is. So people who now say as an article of faith, this is life starts at conception, blah blah blah. It's that's just a political maneuvering. You're a victim of of politics. But whatever.
I have to keep reminding people when I get into my Facebook arguments that we live in a goddamn society.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People arguing proud that I'd never got the vaccine. It's yeah, that's great. That's a great position. You're proud that you never got vaccinated, right? But there is a way to interpret that where
you mean the Axine Vay.
The Axine Vay.
The Axine Vay.
But
is that a verboten word too on TikTok?
but there is a blatant a blatant focus on me and not society, right?
Ian, what if I tell Chinese censors to go fuck themselves?
Yes.
No, they like that. I don't know.
They like that?
So, Steve, there are people that chose not to get the vaccine.
Yeah.
In my opinion, based on absolutely nothing other than misinformation.
Yeah.
There's no science behind it. It's all bullshit. You can follow down any claim that they make all the way down. The science will prove them wrong. And they're proud of it. And I'm like, yeah, but what about the people that you got sick?
Yeah.
Right? We live in a goddamn society. I feel lucky to live in this society. I'm glad I don't have to build my own goddamn roads. I don't want to, you know what I mean? I'd rather pay taxes.
It's very efficient. Just pay taxes, have an expert do it, rather than you do everything. But our society's way too complicated.
But nobody appreciates it. I don't see these people fucking appreciating that.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Well, they're very selective.
Oh, God, it's so frustrating.
Isn't there a famous quote of keep the government's hands off my Medicare? And it's where do you think it comes from? It's from the government.
So many people, they want smaller government, but they want the government to tell you who you can love, who you can have sex with, how you can have sex.
Mm-hmm.
Can you get a pregnancy aborted?
All right.
How many more rights are they going to take away, Steve?
We somehow veered into politics.
Yeah, I know. Let's go back.
But we
to
haven't named
shit.
names. We haven't named anybody. We haven't named the guy.
So Noah's Ark was found.
The fucking guy.
Finally.
Oh, there it is. That's definitely it.
Definitely doesn't look like a. Well, never mind.
How big is it?
Doesn't look very arkish.
Yeah.
This guy again, huh? Jeez.
Yeah, this guy is on a.
Yeah, that's a good frame there. Nope. Yeah, dude. Nope.
Nope. Here we go.
Nope, we were never supposed to see this, as world-ending biblical structures are coming out of hiding and everything we know about religion and science is all changing. People were terrified after archaeologists in Turkey found archaeological evidence showing proof that the Bible is actually real and that the world could face a supernatural biblical ending with the date potentially already set. The Bible mentions one of the last locations Noah's Ark was left in was Turkey, and after archaeologists went there, they were terrified to discover a 515 feet creepy structure that was identical to the Bible's Ark that was buried deep underground. With the terrifying 3D scan done on site, researchers were able to see an actual human-made boat under the ground, with marine equipment and food found inside, as well as several other internal measurements lining up exactly to what the Bible detailed, and even showing artifacts like rivet and petrified deck timber, which are only materials that were used to build boats in ancient times, making people terrified at how this would be documented otherwise in the Bible before scientists even knew this boat existed.
So everything you just heard was complete bullshit.
Yeah. Well, Turkey is a country, so that was mentioned.
That part was real.
Turkey was mentioned.
You're telling me that if they found evidence that there was a boat that was they found, doing through archaeology.
The archaeologists, they were terrified
Yeah,
to
he kept
find
saying
what they
that.
were looking for.
Now, did you notice the through line in
Yeah.
his thing? He kept using that terminology.
Yeah, they're
terrifying.
terrified.
Then he shows, he says, they picked a date when the world is going to end, and he shows all these calamities and all this shit. I mean, this guy is following the playbook, like entertained through fear and anger. You know what I mean?
It's like the pyramid in Bosnia or whatever. It's like, yeah, somebody found on Google Earth a natural structure that looked kind of like a boat, and then they made up all the other bullshit to follow up with it. But you notice what they didn't show was an actual boat.
If that
where's the actual timber?
If that was actually fucking Noah's Ark, they would have dragged the Pope's ass out there, and he would have, hey, we found this wouldn't be like something I find out on goddamn TikTok, right?
That's a good point, and there's some law in there that we need to make a name, that the more amazing the claim on TikTok, the less likely you're going to learn about that thing on TikTok, right? At some point, you get past the point, like, no, you went too far, dude. Like, no, that's not secret knowledge you're going to learn about on TikTok.
Jesus Christ! And I don't believe for a goddamn second that guy believes any of the shit that he's saying.
I think
he's a po.
He's a po.
He's a fucking po.
He's kind of in on it.
Yeah,
he knows how he's
kind of
like
in on it.
spicing
Oh my
up.
God!
I mean, it proved the Bible was real was already a fantastic
dude.
claim.
I
Even
guarantee
if a boat was there. I was like,
Ian, I guarantee you that the guy that said don't drink water had a fucking glass of water off camera, like right there.
True, yeah. Right.
Give me a break. What do you think? He had a bowl full of goddamn grapes?
Oh my God!
Give me a
How
break.
many grapes do you need to eat to get like a glass of
There's
water?
a lot of water in grapes.
No, they're loaded with water. Yeah, but that's not the point.
What are you saying, Ian?
I don't know. I'm just asking questions.
I get so angry. Oh my God! I gotta
relax.
chill out. I gotta chill out.
Chillax,
These fucking people. I mean, holy shit. Holy shit! That guy wakes up and goes, "What bullshit conspiracy
am I gonna
What can
spread
I
on
say
TikTok
today to
today?"
keep my numbers up?"
Should we go back to food guesser? Is that what you're saying? We should stop with all this shit. I don't know. The wisdom teeth pineal gland, I don't want to make fun of it.
Yeah,
It's
whatever.
just
That's
too silly.
just
It's
sad.
like,
At some point, you're getting into mental illness territory where you get to
it's
feel a
just
little
like-
uncomfortable.
Yeah, it feels sad at that point. I don't know.
Why? And why? Again, we have to. There's like Steve's saying, like we need a new vocabulary word. We need a vocabulary word for. I'm not sure if this person even believes the bullshit that they're saying.
Yeah.
Because that's what TikTok is like starting to get filled with. If you don't want to get insulted, watch people playing Fortnite on TikTok. At least something's happening. At least there's like, they're not sitting there like lying to you. You can see something happen. Oh my God.
Except for the hackers that play Fortnite and then hack and show you them hacking.
Yeah.
Have you seen those videos?
Yes.
Those are so
Yep.
wacky. Watch Hamster Rave? Yeah, we could do that too.
Oh my God.
Pollution. So there's still the, perpetual motion. I guess let's go through the ones that you wanted to do.
Let's just do the TikTok video?
Yeah, let's do the
Well, wait,
TikTok.
before you do that,
Yeah.
should we just do our YouTube video?
What are we doing?
I emailed you. Here, I'll tell you. This is what I want to do. I think we might have covered it, for Christ's sake. We talked about so many things.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot. SG is watching. So Jay is on a
Jay's
Fortnite
playing with his
kick.
kids. That's it.
Jay is playing Fortnite.
Well, I can tell you why. I mean, look, first off, it's a really fun game. It really is. I had no idea. I first time I saw it, I'm like, I just was like dismissed it. My kids got into it. My 11-year-old son loves it, and he's been dying, asking me, please, Dad, play with me. All right, I'll do it. And then I realized, Jesus, man, this game is super difficult. It's and like if you apply strategy, if you learn strategy and you actually think about what you're doing, you get way better at the game. And that was the hook. Because I'm like, wow, it takes intelligence to play this game really well. When you hear the people who are really good at it, like talking about the strategy and everything, you're like, so it's fun because I haven't, I used to play Call of Duty, but I sucked. I never like learned how to do it. And, but now like you can learn about, no one was making videos on how to play Call of Duty like 20 years ago. Anyway, yeah, it's fun. Steve.
The real question is, how many skins do you have?
Yeah.
Jay?
I've got three.
Three.
I only bought 3.
All right, that's good.
How many does your son Dylan have?
That's true.
He's got like 50. Yeah.
And he has your credit card, right?
I don't even know how he got the money to buy those. I don't get it.
You should just check your house for missing things. He's probably pawning stuff.
I know we talked about religion, but I did have this idea that we could talk about the position of being agnostic versus being an atheist, and what is the like logical reasoning why we have.
You want to crack that can of worms open?
No, we don't have to.
Very simple.
We can, but I mean that's
And then
it's not like we're starting from scratch with that one.
And then Ian, what was yours? You have this
Well, that one was there was a study about, it might be too deep to get into for this one, but let me look at the the study that I mentioned.
Research unveils link to pandemic non-compliance and conspiracy beliefs.
Yeah, it was a whole study thing that maybe we could.
Oh yeah, that was on my short list for what to talk about on the show tonight.
Oh, okay.
Being
so-
No, but I don't
agnostic,
think- I might not do
agnostic
it.
is not like a just in case. You're not kind of like, oh, I might believe. No, like being agnostic means that we just simply
know.
don't think that there is any evidence to say there isn't a God.
No,
right?
the best way to put it is that you think the question is inherently unknowable as a scientific or logical question, right? So, again, we're going to get sucked into this whole debate now.
Yeah.
You want to talk about it or what?
I don't know. What was the
Think about some other ones.
the thing is, so an atheist is the positive belief that there is no God or no supernatural beings, right? The agnosticism is the philosophical position that it's outside the realm of science and is therefore you can never arrive at a scientific definitive conclusion about it. You could only have faith in it one way or the other. You could still also not believe, or even believe that there isn't a God, but you acknowledge that it's inherently unknowable. Depending on how it's formulated, right? You can formulate beliefs that are falsifiable, but a non-falsifiable belief you can only be agnostic towards, whether it's religious or not religious.
Yes. So it's
That's
just
all that
agnosticism
it's
is.
just scientifically more accurate to say
It's philosophically more accurate.
philosophically more accurate, but it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. I mean,
It's a distinct. It's
when I hear atheists talk, I 100% agree with what they're
Yeah.
saying. It's not that I don't agree with what they're saying. I just think I'd rather take it from a more logical perspective.
yeah.
But isn't anti-theist the positive claim versus atheist is the negative claim?
Yeah.
Rejection.
But atheist is a lack of belief.
Right.
But
Because it's like not guilty versus guilty.
But I've heard some atheists self-describe as I believe there is no God. So
Yeah, I think
there's
that's
a lot of
anti-theist.
confusion on
Yeah.
that point.
It's definitely
But again, if you're trying to,
consistent
but
case.
if you can make a series of self-consistent, definitions, and and you can be an agnostic and an atheist at the same time. Again,
Right.
they're not mutually exclusive.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter. That's the thing. I think it's an interesting thing to talk about.
It's a philosophical discussion.
It's an
If you
exercise
wanna
in
get
philosophy.
and it's a bit of it is semantics.
The real
but
thing is, should we eat babies?
There are different
That's-
flavors of I don't believe in God.
Yeah, wait. This guy said something totally true. There are a lot of religions saying that atheism is essentially a religion.
But
it's not.
which it isn't.
It's absolutely not.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's also part of the reason to call oneself an agnostic, so you don't get sucked into that bullshit.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good point.
Okay, I'm not stating as a point of faith that there is no God. I'm saying that nobody knows or can know if that kind of claim is true or not.
Right.
And therefore, it is a matter of personal faith and get out of my face. Right?
Yeah, this next person has a
Sir,
great
this
point
is a
too.
Walmart. Can you please?
Yeah.
Someone said there's many religions. Aren't all religious people then both religious and atheists? And that's a good freaking point
Yes.
because you're saying my God exists, but yours doesn't. So I'm atheist to your God.
You're an atheist towards every God except for one.
Yeah.
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 3,999.
I'm just an atheist about one more God than you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah, that's a classic
one.
The
Yeah,
first
you-
time I heard that,
You disbelieve in 187 gods. I disbelieve in 188. Are we
Yeah.
that different?
yeah, we agree on so much. I heard
That's a
Randy.
lot of common ground.
Randy was the first one that I heard to actually say that, and I
Yeah.
thought it was so clever.
Or somebody during a lecture, somebody asked, "Do you believe in God?" And Randy's like, "Which God? Thor?"
That seems cool.
Yeah,
And
that was
it's-
kind of cool.
And it's so
Got a big
funny because
hammer.
people assume when you say God that the other person knows what God you're talking about.
The God.
Yeah.
God.
But again, getting back to our original discussion about historical knowledge, is like that was a late entrant into the whole religious mythology of humanity, the idea of one God. Prior to that, most religions believed in multiple gods, and the idea of only a single God was like a radical new,
Yeah.
belief.
I would rather believe in a pantheon. That would be so much more
It was, yeah,
interesting
more
and fun.
And just hard to keep up with.
Yeah,
you know.
it's
Plus, they're very human. Like they're all flawed and
Yeah.
dicks and jerks. But isn't that what the Trinity is supposed to do? It's like technically there are like three,
yeah. The
gods.
Holy
No,
Ghost.
but it's all one God.
but it's all
though.
one.
Yeah.
So it's like it's still
and,
monotheistic.
and there
but
isn't a
not-
person on the planet that can describe that to me where I get it.
Yeah. It's kinda
Jesus,
It's one of those
God,
retconning
and,
things.
and the Holy Ghost.
It's like, wait, how does this statement, combine with all these? Well, they're all God. There's like three,
Yeah.
but there's really one, and it's a mystery. Just don't try
Don't
to
look. Don't look behind the curtain.
Yeah,
Okay?
look-
Get away.
Ignore that man behind the curtain.
Stop bothering me, kid.
Yeah, get away from me, kid. You're bothering me.
Lord of the Rings has better world building. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
All right, so we're gonna. What was the other one? It was about the conspiracy thing.
Yeah, so that was.
You'd have to read it though. For
I
you.
did read it. I was prepping it for tonight.
Yeah, but I don't know anything about it.
Well, you could just ask.
You just ask me questions.
Yeah, ask me questions about psychological entitlement.
Entitlement, yeah, it's
new
the whole
research unveiled. Hold on, let me put it on the screen.
And why they don't believe in the fucking
People,
vaccine.
I know what it is. I read it. I was it was on my short list for tonight.
Yeah,
I'll probably
it was
do
like probably something you were already going to do, but
yeah.
But
we could do that if you want to do that.
Yeah, it was. I think it was also the entitlement of people who like went out right during the pandemic, and how that relates to people who believe in conspiracy theories or something. To that
So
effect.
people who believe that they're feel entitled, they were more likely to be conspiracy theorists and also to like go to casinos in the middle of the pandemic, right? So basically flout social distancing norms because that doesn't apply to them,
right?
And then they justify it by saying it's all a conspiracy anyway.
Steve, did you get paid to say that hydrogen is hard to produce? Are you getting money behind the scenes that I don't know about?
Oh, I wish I were.
Jesus Christ. If anybody wants me to be their rube, just freaking email us at info@theskepticsguide.org. I will take your money.
All right, talk to chat for a second.
All right, we're talking to the chat. You have been accused, Steve. You have been accused of being a shill for so many different things. If Steve was a shill for half the things he was accused of, you would be a multi-millionaire.
I know. Yeah. For the record, I'm a shill for nothing.
You're a shill, but you're not getting paid. That's right.
Yeah. I get. No one's paying me to say anything. Hydrogen is hard to produce.
Let me take it a step further.
You know what percentage of hydrogen in the world is green hydrogen? What percentage of hydrogen production in the world is green hydrogen? Less than 1%. Less than 1%. It's almost all gray hydrogen where it's being stripped off of hydrocarbons, off of fossil fuels. So, yeah, I'm not saying we can't do it. It's just doing it in a energy cost-effective, scalable process that could be done on an industrial level. Right? So, but dude, yeah, it's hard to produce at scale, cheap, abundant, at an industrial scale. Yeah. That's what's hard. No, not just doing it, that's electrolysis. And, that's very easy to do, right? Yeah, just splitting water, electrolyzing water is a great way to make hydrogen. But do it. Why aren't we doing it then? Why aren't 100% of hydrogen production from electrolyzing water? Because you can't do it for cost effective at scale. That's why. Right? That's the point. So you're basically mischaracterizing what I've said in the past.
So let me tell you how Steve isn't a shill, right? Like this is so obvious. So we have an advertising company that we're associated with that is constantly sending us every week potential advertisers. So I'm the first screen, right? So I go through and I'm like, nope, we can't do that. We can't do that. We have an editorial policy, right? So if Steve was a shill, number one, we would be having insane advertising because it's free money. All we got to do is say this word, say what they want us to say for 60 seconds, and we get paid money. If Steve were a shill, that's the hard way, is being a shill. We just need to put bullshit advertisers on the show. So then when I go, all right, Steve, this is the couple of advertisers I want to know if they're okay. Half the time Steve says no. And so now it's even a smaller list of advertisers. We could barely get 2 ads on our show.
We're getting like half of what we've already... Like we've said, all right, we'll do 2 ads per show, which is very little, first of all, right?
Yeah.
If we were being shows, we would have 3-4 ads per show.
More than that. We have an hour and a half show.
know.
We could put 8 ads on a show that long.
And we would fill them with whatever. Instead, we have 2 per show, and we're only really on average having maybe 1 because we reject the vast majority of the ads that get offered to us.
So we could triple our income by just running any ad that they get,
just being
that
shills.
they gave us. So yeah, being shills, exactly. Yeah. So for those of you who say that,
but Jay, you say that, but how do they know that's what's really happening? But what you do know is how many ads are in our very long show. We have a hour 40 to 2 hour weekly podcast, and we have some, like last week's show had 0 advertisers, and the one before that had 1. We have like between 0 and 2 ads per week, and it's because we're really freaking picky.
Yeah, because we don't want to offend our listeners. We don't want to
Yeah.
give them misinformation. We were all the way at the last gate with this mattress company, and then Steve. This was like I already approved it. I already said, yeah, well, it's a mattress. It's a fucking mattress. Who cares? Steve goes on their website at like 11 o'clock at night and finds that some of their mattresses have magnets in them.
No. They were selling feng shui on their website.
Oh, it was feng shui. Okay,
Feng shui.
right. That was the feng shui.
Like
one.
that's it. We can't do it. There's
So I'm like, we already, Steve, who gives a shit? It's feng shui. Who gives a shit? Who cares? Steve's like, nope. There you go.
Well, because our listeners would go on the website. They're selling feng shui.
Yeah, I know.
Can't do that.
I know, and then
They got pissed. They got pissed at us.
Yeah, they
The
did. That was
advertiser.
bad. The advertiser was really pissed off because they lost money. You know what I mean? Anyway, so yeah, we're not shills.
But become a patron at patreon.com/skepticsguide to keep the
We
lights
are
on,
a
please.
member listener supported
Now there is
podcast.
a whole other angle to this though.
And we give good value.
If we
your
could reach out to all of our listeners and be like, listen, we're going to take these bullshit companies that we know you're not going to spend money on, and we're going to put their ads on our show, and we're going to take their money, but we know you're not going to buy it. So don't get angry at us for running the ad. We're getting free money, and you just ignore the ad, right? But we can't do that because we can't reach out to all of our listeners. First off, it's illegal for us to make that agreement with our listeners.
Yeah.
Or contractually, we can't do that anyway. But, there's lots of ways around this that we could do it. We just don't do it. That's it. We run ads that we vet, and we test the products. When it's
I'd rather have no ads.
No, forget that.
But if we got enough patrons, then we could get rid of
And
the
you can
ads.
get no ads at patreon.com/skeptics.
That's true. And if you want the show with no ads, just become a patron.
You know what we should do? We should run ads on like really wooey podcasts and see how many people think, oh, Skeptics Guide, that's probably in my alley. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
convert
yeah.
'em
Kara
secretly.
is not making us call her doctor. It's a joke, actually. It's a
What?
she's not a joke, but
she texted me saying,
but-
only refer to me as
yeah.
Dr. Kara.
Oh God, you guys, the stories that Kara tells us off, not on the podcast about. Oh my God, she's so funny. Anyway, no, we call her doctor though. I mean, she earned it. I like to say it.
I'm not at work today because I'm on vacation. I'm working on the SGU on my vacation. That's how dedicated I
Yeah.
am.
So how about that?
But normally I don't have patients Wednesday afternoon. I have telehealth Wednesday morning. So I'm at home doing telehealth patients. And Wednesday afternoon I don't have anything scheduled. So that's when we do this bit
Yeah,
on Wednesday afternoon.
just taking more of Steve's free time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you, Randall, for the super chat.
Yeah, I appreciate
Sent
that.
$10 to us. That was
Really
cool.
appreciate it.
Appreciated.
Let's do those
okay,
TikToks.
Let's,
Oh, no, we're going to do that. Let's do the
video
conspiracy
yeah,
thing.
Yeah. We'll do the conspiracy thing. All right. We'll set that up. Let me just hit the recordo.
Yes, seawater is easier to process than hydrogen. Stupid hand doesn't want to give it up
Then why aren't they doing it? If the thing is,
because it's a conspiracy, Steve.
and again, they are doing it. They're just having a hard time scaling. Like we say, solar, just do it with solar. Yeah, but where? Where are you gonna have all those solar panels? That's
Maybe
a lot of energy.
It's big helium coming for
Big helium.
hydrogen. That doesn't make any sense.
I saw a guy with a Bitcoin farm,
Yeah.
right?
Oh my God.
They're making $12,000 an hour, and
How are they doing that?
Well, he just has a giant facility that are mining Bitcoins. Like
So is that net, or is he grossing that much?
it's probably
But
gross. But I'm
It's
looking,
costing him $1,199
Yeah,
an hour
right.
to run the farm.
and he is
Easily.
he goes over and he's like, the air coming out of this, because they use
Yeah.
video cards, right? He goes, the air coming out of here is so hot I can't keep my hand near it. It's like, dude, it's an ecological disaster to
Yeah,
mine
what he's
Bitcoin.
doing. Yeah.
Like, holy shit, let's stop that.
Especially at this point. There's like how many more?
Not many.
Doesn't it take like exponentially more energy to get the new one or whatever?
All right, what are we doing?
All right, we're rolling, so we could get into that.
All right, hold on.
Get clacker it a little bit.
Let me clean up the desk too. Ready? Cracker. Where's it? All right.
Oh.
Thank you. The magic of noise. Let's get rid of these. All right, I don't need my things in anymore. I'm taking them out. So the premise here is, before I do my opening line, that people who didn't get vaccinated, didn't think they needed to get vaccinated, are more likely to be conspiracy theorists. Is that the premise?
The new bit is that believing in conspiracies
Mhm.
and not complying with pandemic safety rules correlates with having a sense of entitlement.
Sense of entitlement. Okay. All right. So those people there might be a correlation.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. All right, let's do it. Ready? Steve, are you an entitled person? Do you feel like you have a sense of entitlement?
I struggle with that sometimes, but I definitely try not to.
Did you get vaccinated?
Yes, I did.
All right. Are you aware that there are people who didn't get vaccinated, and they found that those people have a sense that predominantly have a sense of entitlement that goes along with them not getting vaccinated?
Yeah, so this is a recent study that came out. It's very interesting. We've talked on the Skeptic's Guide a lot about conspiracy thinking, right? The conspiracy mindset. There are some people who buy every conspiracy. Like there's something about their brain, that how their brain works, or their style of thought or whatever, that predisposes them to really finding conspiracy theories very compelling and to believing in conspiracy theories that the average person would find implausible and fantastical, right? And there's a lot of psychological research trying to disentangle, like, why is it? Why are these people the way they are? And so this study, actually a study and a survey, they're looking at the data a few different ways. They found that conspiracy thinking correlates well with a feeling of entitlement, right? People who feel that they are entitled to resources, to privileges, to respect beyond what maybe they objectively deserve of the average person.
Why is that?
Well, that's a good question, and it's always, when you see a correlation like that, you want to know what is the cause and effect, or is there some third thing that they both sort of result from? But it kind of makes sense in that, a feeling of entitlement is a kind of feeling special, and we know that the grand conspiracy mindset does include this component of feeling special, right? It's like you are one of the few people who can really see how the world is working. Like you've peeked behind the curtain. You can see, how the powers that be, the invisible hand operating behind the scenes, so that what they are doing, etc. But they added another component in this study as well. They asked people during the pandemic shutdown, did you go to any buffets or theaters or casinos or whatever? Basically, did you do anything that would put you at risk or put others at risk that was clearly a voluntary, like not essential activity, right? Like going to a casino is probably not essential, during the pandemic. And they found that correlated as well.
Yeah.
So what they're basically saying is there's a subgroup of people who have a feeling of entitlement, are predisposed to believing in conspiracy theories, and also were predisposed to engage, ignoring public health, advice, like not going out in public unless it's absolutely essential. So how does that inform our thinking about conspiracy theorists, given all previous research? And so that, again, it remains to be seen, I think, but it is an interesting component, and at least fits what we already believe.
Like the model that exists.
Yeah, that this evolving model of what is it about people who are conspiracy theorists?
Do you think that narcissism is kind of mixed into this as well?
Narcissism correlates with entitlement, right? So that's how those two things go together. So you could think, so do people who are narcissists, are they more likely to be entitled and conspiracy theorists, or whatever? Who knows? No one study is going to resolve a complicated relationship like this. But the entitlement piece is interesting. It is interesting and it does add a bit to the overall picture of conspiracy theorists, right? So what do we know about conspiracy theorists based upon prior research? We know that they are more likely to
see connections between things.
Yeah. So what they're doing is they're conspiracy theorists are people who see a connection between things that are not obviously connected, and they think that often there's a paranoia that goes along with it. It's like, for example, like the powers that be, the CIA or whoever, they killed JFK, and they look for patterns in coincidences of what happened that day to say, there was something going on, that they whatever the standard or official story is can't possibly be the real story. There's got to be a dark, deep secret. there's something that we call a grand conspiracy theory. A grand conspiracy theory has a few components to it, right? So obviously, whenever we talk about conspiracies, we have to say conspiracies obviously exist, right? There are so-called kitchen table conspiracies or office room conspiracies. Two people in a company can decide to do something illegal or nefarious in order to goose their stock prices, whatever. That's technically a conspiracy. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about grand conspiracies.
You mean lots of people have to be involved?
Grand conspiracies are huge in scope and in power, right? So they involve lots of people, maybe over many institutions or organizations operating over long periods of time, often exhibiting fantastic control over events, over society, over people. These are organizations, sometimes grand conspiracies, are as powerful as nations or secretly controlling countries or are international in scope. Like they're like the real power running the earth.
The Illuminati.
Like the Illuminati.
The lizard people.
The lizard, they're so powerful. They're running the world behind the scenes, right? And governments are puppets, the press are puppets, everyone's puppets. That's how big it gets. Those are grand conspiracies. So why would people believe in such things when they're inherently fantastical and implausible? Again, there was a very interesting study from a number of years ago that showed that if you just analytically look at these studies, look at these conspiracy theories, they are not sustainable. It would be impossible to keep them genuinely secret over a long period of time. But anyway, so what about the people who believe in these conspiracies? What do we know about them? So we know that they have a tendency for pattern recognition. Of course, we all have a tendency for pattern recognition, so that kind of fits. But does it more of a tendency for pattern recognition than the average person? That's something that's still under investigation. But it seems like, they have an enhanced pattern recognition. They see patterns even when they don't exist. But probably more importantly is they have impaired reality testing. So our brains actually function by sort of over-detecting patterns. We see patterns that aren't even there, and then filtering out the ones that don't make sense.
Is that happening unconsciously?
Yeah. We see things like, that can't be true because it doesn't make any sense. It would violate the laws of physics, or again, people don't behave that way, or whatever. You think that that can't be. But we notice it and we laugh it off as a coincidence. But if you're a conspiracy theorist, you don't laugh it off as a coincidence. You think that's the way the world is really working. You think it's real. Your reality testing circuitry is not rejecting it for these reasons, that the average person would reject it. And so, what is it about their brains that makes them do that? Again, we're still trying to sort it out, but this is something that has been observed. So this is where I think the entitlement or narcissistic piece comes in, because part of the conspiracy theory mindset is that they think that they're special.
They know something secret and special.
So and so that goes along with the narcissism, thinking that you're special. So the grand conspiracy has the conspiracy perpetrators who are diabolically brilliant and incredibly powerful, and then you have the conspiracy theorists who are some special insight into seeing what's going on, and then everyone else who are the sheeple, right? That's how they sort of structure the world. But what's interesting is that the conspiracy perpetrators have to be simultaneously brilliant and powerful, and at the same time really stupid, because they make these ridiculously stupid mistakes that allow for the conspiracy theorists to detect them. Right?
I have never thought about that angle before.
Because it has to be at the same time. It's that's why when you look at these grand conspiracy theories, well, how do you know this grand conspiracy is happening? If they're so powerful that they can control the media and the government, and they can fake this evidence, and they can hide and kill that guy and hide it, how do you know about it? And why aren't you dead? And they always say, well, because of this. They give you the evidence for it, but it's like, but wouldn't that be stupid then? How they're tipping their hand to you? Some rando on the internet. But they just sort of hand wave away that inconsistency. But of course, that's partly solved by them thinking that they're really insightful and really special, and you're naive and you're like the rube, right? So that narcissistic piece kind of fits with their worldview of how these conspiracies work and how they're able to see them. And then the researchers were just using the ignoring public health measures as a marker that they're behaviorally, yes, they're not just saying they're entitled, they behave like somebody who is entitled. They don't think that the rules apply to them.
Yeah.
Right? So even though the average person shouldn't be going out during the pandemic, I can go out because I'm special.
Yeah.
You know, the rules don't apply to me. Yeah, so it adds one more layer to the whole conspiracy phenomenon, which, you know, as we know, is an absolutely critical thing for people to understand, because everybody could slip into conspiracy thinking to some degree. And a lot of people believe in like one conspiracy that kind of fits their ideology, or they're like opportunistic conspiracy theorists. But again, there's like this subset of people, 5-10% or whatever, they're just conspiracy theorists. They believe every conspiracy.
Yep, I know them. They're out there.
Yeah.
Watch yourself.
Yeah, and the internet obviously is a great medium for spreading conspiracy thinking. And
Don't we know
it's
it?
growing
Yeah.
the phenomenon incredibly. You know, used to be you had to like go out of your way to find the hardcore conspiracy theories. Now they're just a mouse click away.
All right, good job, guys.
All right.
Stop that recording. Stop that.
George,
stop
did I see
that.
George in the chat?
Yeah, George is in the chat.
Wait,
At
our
least-
George?
Yeah, our George is or was.
The George.
The only
He's there?
George.
George, what's up,
The
man?
Geo. He was back up higher.
So we're seeing on the, and I see Ted in there too.
Ted's here.
Mhm.
Right
What's
there.
up, Ted? Oh, and Ian's in there too.
Oh, who's that?
All right, I think we're good.
Well, we got to do TikToks with
Steve's gonna do TikToks.
Steve.
Yes.
Which ones did you want?
Well, we could
to
start
pull?
with the astrology flat Earth one.
Oh yeah, the geocentric guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a hell of a discussion going on in the chat, huh?
Yeah. A little like debate on whether or not a plane actually hit the Pentagon in 2001.
It absolutely did.
Of course
Yeah,
it did.
it's like-
We know a person that was in the building when it happened.
Yeah.
So that's as good information as you can get.
Yeah.
Hey, Melanie, how you doing?
It's kind of a little misdirection, Cody.
All right, Steve's going to do his thing, guys. And I'm going to go because I got to prep for the show tonight.
So yeah, so we got that one. What was the
What's
other
your
one
news
you
item?
wanted to do?
I sent you two. Just tell me which one you want.
What are they?
Should I mute it? Don't let anybody.
Take a look in your email real quick.
All right.
Don't let anybody know. Okay, we got the killed the inventor guy. Is that the one that
Yeah,
you're thinking?
I'll do that one. Yeah.
And then the muscle mass. For
No.
now. Plants are sentient.
No.
Perpetual motion. Oh wait, the sugar free, right?
The sugar one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the flat Earth one.
Flat Earth.
Do you
yeah.
believe the Earth is flat?
Do you believe the Earth is flat? Okay, that's what we'll do. Everybody
What's
say
a
bye,
coincidence that
Jay.
you think about?
Bye,
Do you believe the Earth is flat
Jay. Oh God. Oh boy. Bye bye. Let me put this one here. Get this one here. Okay. Now we're cooking with something. Okay. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's do the flat Earth one.
Okay, flat Earth. Where did that other one go? Oh, this is the guy. Okay, let's do a little TikTok picture-in-picture. Oops, wrong camera. Oh, I gotta move the camera. That's right.
Yeah.
Stand by. Got that.
I should be looking like this.
Yeah. Okay. Oh. Move that chair out of the way. Jay's chair. Yeah, there we go. Alrighty. Let's do a little zooming action. Oh, you know what? Let me do it like this so that they can see what we're talking about. Stand by, full screen. There we go. Now we got it recording.
You got to use the TikTok picture in picture, not the Q&A.
Yes. Well, this one I'm not really gonna use. It's like super backup.
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna capture just the vertical one.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right, we're good.
Do you believe the Earth is flat?
I know the Earth is flat.
Seriously?
Astrology and flat Earth or true Earth are symbiotic. You cannot have one without the other. If you have a ball and you are spinning, flying through space, chasing this fireball, your constellations would change every now and then. And our constellations have never changed. The stars have never changed. We have the same 12 zodiac signs that we had back in the Dendera stones in Egypt over 5,000 years ago. We're not moving. Every single ancient society knew this. The Mayans, the Aztecs, the Hindus, the Egyptians, every single ancient culture knew that we live in a geocentric universe, not a heliocentric, where we are spinning, chasing this ball of fire while all of these other planets are rotating around us, while all of these other stars are rotating around us. If that was the case, Polaris would move, number one, which is the North Star, and it doesn't. Number two, all of the constellations would not rotate solely around Polaris, but they do. Therefore, we are the center of the universe.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'll cut a chunk in the middle.
Yeah.
I think that's enough of
that.
Whatever the hell he was saying. Oh, wait, wrong camera. There we go.
Got to keep in the Polaris would not move, though, because I'm going to directly respond to that.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Back up wide. Is that the right one?
Wrong camera.
Different. Yeah.
Or wrong background.
Yeah, it's the wrong background, but I don't actually use this one. I use the vertical. If you look in the vertical cam on the monitor.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I see. Yeah, good.
So, all right, we're rolling.
Right. Well, actually, Polaris is moving and has moved, so he's just factually wrong here. So let me introduce you to the concept of the precession of the equinoxes. This was the third motion of the Earth that was discovered by astronomers. In fact, it was first suspected by Hipparchus in around 129 BCE. So at that time, Hipparchus was looking at records, star charts from 5,000 years earlier, Babylonian star charts, and said, these star charts are off. All of the positions of the stars, not just the constellations, but all the star positions are all shifted. They're significantly shifted, and they were all shifted together, right? So he correctly deduced from that, that must be because the Earth is moving, because everything is shifting in the same way in the sky. And so what is happening is called precession. Now, have you ever spun a top, right? And the top, as it's spinning, it rotates around this way. The Earth is doing the same thing because of the gravitational influence mainly of the sun and the moon. As the Earth is, rotating around its axis, it's also spinning. The axis is shifting this way, and one full circuit takes over 25,000 years to complete. So obviously that's very slow, but 5,000 years was enough for Hipparchus to note that the axis moved from here to here, and so all the constellations have shifted. Since then, a couple of thousand years have gone by, and it's shifted still further, and we could measure the movement, even though it's very, very tiny year to year. It's like I think it's 0.054 arc seconds. And we're talking very, very tiny amount. But yes, we can measure these very tiny precession of the Earth's axis. Polaris wasn't always where the axis of the Earth, the North Pole was not pointing at Polaris. It's roughly, not exactly at Polaris, but Polaris is close to, to that point in the sky, the North Star. It wasn't always that way. It'll drift off, and then 25,000 years in the future, it'll come back again. So he actually refutes his own point. He's just ignorant of astronomy. The constellations are shifting. Now, the constellations are not changing themselves over several thousand years. That kind of movement takes more like hundreds of thousands or millions of years before those changes will happen. But they'll change also. The constellations will change. That's because of the movements of the stars themselves in our revolution around the galaxy, some stars are moving in different directions at different velocities, so the relative positions will shift. And if you could look at the sky for millions of years, you would see the stars all moving in different directions. Carl Sagan in Cosmos, in the original Cosmos series, showed some animations of projecting star positions back in the past and forward into the future, if you're interested in that. So yeah, the stars move, the constellations shift. It's because, the Earth is a sphere revolving around the sun. The other planets are also revolving around the sun. This explains very precisely, incredibly precisely, the movement of the planets in the sky, the shifting with the seasons, all of the movements that we can perceive. We've been measuring these things with increasing precision over the last few thousand years. And no, the Earth is not flat.
Very good. Okay.
Those are not hearing aids, these are just my microphones,
Yeah,
my
ear
inner microphones.
headphones.
I probably should get a hearing aid, though. My hearing is not great.
Yeah. Actually, can you wrap the wire more around your ear? Because it's kind of...
Where? Which one?
The left one. Yeah, it's like kind of poking.
Can I
out.
take
you
them
can
out?
take them out. Yeah, if you don't want to listen to...
Yeah. No, let's check them out.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
There we are.
There we are. All right, so that's a good one. Should we do a shorty for that? Or I could edit something from
Yeah,
it.
just edit.
I'll just edit.
What's
All right,
next?
Let's see. We got...
There's the
next
aspartame.
up. Yeah, we could do the aspartame,
Yeah.
sugar-free lady. Let me do this one. Here we go. Oh, it's the same thing. Digital Social Hour. This is the same guy. I don't know, same podcast of wackiness. How do you full screen?
The majority of these companies.
Hold on, let me just.
Yeah, hearing your own voice is always weird. It took me a while to get used to it, but it's
Yeah.
been so long now. It's not a
Especially if
problem.
it's delayed, that is like a brain killer.
Oh, I hate that. The delayed thing is,
It's like
disrupts your
impossible.
brain function.
That's a fun challenge. Can you talk while you're hearing yourself delayed by like half a second?
Yeah.
It's like you really can't.
You really can't.
Okay, let me just move this around. I hate Instagram. Layout is so dumb. So yeah, I don't know who this guy is, Digital Social Hour, but he's inviting a lot of interesting characters on. Probably for the algo rhythm. All right, let's. You know what? I probably have to refresh this one. So let me hit record. Hit record. Boom. Refresh on that one.
You can almost guarantee that if it says sugar-free on the front of the package, that it's going to have artificial sweeteners. The problem is that the majority of these companies saying that they're sugar-free are using things like aspartame and sucralose. The aspartame, the World Health Organization is about to deem a possible human carcinogen. It's a really long time coming. When they were first trying to introduce it into the food supply, there was a top scientist that was trying to block that from it being allowed in our food because he was seeing a possible link to tumors. And this was back in the 80s. And then with sucralose, it's also known as Splenda. And there was a study that just came out linking it to leaky gut syndrome. And then they also named it a genotoxin, which means that it damages our DNA.
They used to have that at every restaurant in the container.
I know. It's really concerning. And every time I post about this, people will write me and say, but it says in the study you have to consume X amount of it for it to be a problem. But the problem in the study that they found is that it bioaccumulates, meaning that over time it accumulates more in your body. It's not like your body just flushes it out and gets rid of it. So even if you're having like a little bit here and there, well, what happens if you're drinking it every single day for 3 years?
I could edit around that, but I think that's the main claim, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Let's go to that. We go back here. TikTok. Let me fix your camera a little bit. Skirt. All right, we're on.
It's really easy to fearmonger around toxicology research if you have no idea how it works. Essentially what researchers do is they give increasing doses of a substance that people might get exposed to rats usually, or mice or some test animal, until we give ridiculously high doses, and they look to see at what point does toxicity, toxic effects, bad biological effects start to take place. They're pushing it until it breaks, right? They are deliberately giving ridiculously high doses to see where that starts to come in. So saying that research shows that, this substance is a possible carcinogen is almost meaningless. All it means is, that some researchers gave rats thousands of times more than you're likely to get exposed to until they got cancer or whatever, until something bad happened. So that kind of research, typically broadly called toxicology research, is all about hazard, right? Meaning, is there any potential negative biological effect? And the answer is almost always yes, once you go high enough in the dose. But what this doesn't tell you anything about is risk. Is there a risk of anything bad actually happening with human levels of exposure, And so, but this is the information that regulatory agencies use in order to determine the safety limits. So let's talk about aspartame to start. Yes, aspartame has been around for 50 plus years, it's been around for a long time. There has been fear-mongering about aspartame around for just as long. Meanwhile, there have been thousands and thousands of studies looking at this chemical. It has been reviewed by regulatory agencies around the world. And the bottom line is that at the levels that people consume, aspartame is safe. There is no significant risk of any kind. The only risk is to people who have a hard time metabolizing phenylalanine. That's why there's a warning on any aspartame-containing products that this product contains phenylalanine. So if you have phenylketonuria, you got to take that into consideration. You shouldn't be using it. But for everyone else, there's no proven risk, to aspartame. So just to address a couple of things that were said in the video, and at some points it was unclear whether or not she was talking about aspartame or sucralose. So aspartame absolutely does not bioaccumulate in the body, right? There is no evidence for bioaccumulation. It gets easily metabolized and eliminated from the body. It does not bioaccumulate. The amounts that you get exposed to in diet drinks or in food or whatever is, you would have to eat hundreds to thousands of times as much as any reasonable person is likely to consume before you start to get to the lower limit of the safety levels of aspartame. So that means there's basically no risk to consuming it just in normal products, in food and in drinks. Now let's talk about sucralose. It's basically the same story in terms of hazard versus risk. Yes, at super high levels, you can see that there's some problems with it. But actually, what's interesting with the sucralose toxicology data is that even when they got to like 4,000 times, a likely human dose, they still aren't really seeing a lot of toxicity in their research animals. The only effect that was really seen was that the rats that they were studying started to lose weight, because with that much sucralose, the food that they were feeding them wasn't very palatable. So the rats didn't like the food when it had that massive a percentage of sucralose in it. Other than that, they weren't seeing any organ toxicity or any of the usual things that researchers look at to see if a substance is likely to be toxic or not. They also found that, yes, it's pretty much easily eliminated from the body, some in the urine, most in the feces. 90% of it is not even digested or absorbed. It just passes right through your GI system and gets excreted in your feces. Some percentage, depending on the species, for humans, it's about 10% gets excreted in the urine. Now, what about the genotoxicity? This is actually not for sucralose itself, but for a potential either metabolite or contaminant of sucralose. It's a different chemical that is not found in sucralose, or if it is, it's in really tiny percentages, a very, very tiny metabolite contaminant that gets included in there. So again, like the dose is many thousands of times smaller than anything that a reasonable person can get exposed to through eating food, containing sucralose. It also mostly does not bioaccumulate. It's not as I can't make it an absolute statement as I did with aspartame. Some does seem to bioaccumulate in adipose tissue, in fat tissue, but does that cause any problem? No, not that we can detect, and certainly not at the doses that our people are likely to consume. It's not bioaccumulating in the liver or in the brain or anything like that. So, and again, bottom line, we're all talking about theoretical, issues like could, in a petri dish or with an animal species pushed to its absolute limits, can you go out of your way to produce toxicity? The answer is almost always yes. Again, we do this research to figure out a good buffer of safety limits on consumption. But is there any demonstrated harm from consuming sucralose or aspartame? No. The amounts that people are getting exposed to are just way, way, way too tiny in order to cause any health problems as far as we can tell so far. Now, we always say more research is better. For anything that people are consuming, on a regular basis, we want the largest, buffer of safety possible. And there's always new information that could come to light. Yes, we should be researching and chasing down these things that crop up, like, oh, there's this potential new metabolite did we look at that closely enough? And it's reassuring that, 50 years later, we're still doing research on, food additives like aspartame. But this is all, toxicology research that's happening in the background. It's really scary if you take it completely out of context and have no idea how this research actually functions and how it informs us. But there is no evidence for any real risk from consuming sucralose and aspartame, which is why these substances have been approved by regulatory agencies around the world. It's not just the FDA. It's in Europe and in Asia, multiple different countries. They all look at the same evidence and come to the same conclusion. This is by medical experts, regulatory experts, people whose job it is to protect the public from harm. I don't think that somebody talking on TikTok is going to have more insight or a better scientific understanding of the research than, experts in the field, have dedicated their life to looking at this kind of research and putting it into perspective and making these very decisions. Is this safe to consume at the level that consumers are likely to encounter it? At the moment, there is no reason to be concerned about consuming aspartame or sucralose. The evidence is actually very reassuring. The amount of difference between how much you consume and the lowest levels that could produce, any harm is pretty extensive. And so actually the evidence, when you know how to interpret it is very reassuring.
Very good.
And what was the last one we were going to do?
Let me just pull that up. It is the guy who got quote unquote assassinated.
The guy who got killed because he invented water fuel car.
And then he merges it in with like mass shoot. I mean, like that. God, what a dick. I don't know. Anyway, let's listen to this. Here we go. Where's this picture? Oops, I gotta fix that now because we're no longer on Instagram. We're on good old fashioned TikTok. Where is it? There we go. Boop. There we go. And let me do a little screen share for the good people of the YouTubes and the other. Okay, record. Here we go.
What's a coincidence that you think about a lot? I'll go first.
I think a lot about the time that kid drove 200 miles to Buffalo to pew-pew a bunch of people in a grocery store because he was such a racist he had to drive all the way to Buffalo to do it. And one of those people turned out to be Aaron Salter Jr., an inventor who created the world's first water-powered car and was featured on the local news in Buffalo 2 months before the shooting. A man who created this world-changing revolutionary item, unalived by some random kid who drove 200 miles to do his crimes. I think about that a lot.
All right, let me get back to the TikTok screen and this one right here. All right, we're rolling.
What was the name of the guy who got killed again?
Aaron, did he say Aaron Salkin? Let me see.
I wasn't listening to the...
To Buffalo to pew-pew a bunch of people in a grocery store because he was such a racist he had to drive all the way to Buffalo to do it. And one of those people turned out to be Aaron Salter Jr., an inventor.
Aaron Salter Jr.
Salter.
Aaron Salter Jr.
Yeah. Okay.
There it is. All right, we're rolling.
So there's a few layers to unpack here to what is being said. First, let's just talk about the Buffalo shooting. So yeah, the shooter traveled 200 miles from his hometown in New York State up to Buffalo, where he specifically targeted an establishment that had a lot of black people, and he killed, I think it was 16 people, 14 of whom were black, including a retired police officer, Salter. It's pretty clear what this person's motivations were, right? They had posted a lot of replacement theory, racist stuff on the internet, and he went there to kill black people, right? The FBI investigated it, and others have investigated it, and the story is pretty clear. So you have to be a pretty extreme conspiracy theorist to think that this whole thing was kind of a put-up job or faked or whatever. But obviously there are people who are willing to believe that. But I think that's, problematic on multiple levels. First, because you have to be a grand conspiracy theorist, which doesn't make sense. And second, it kind of minimizes what really happened there, that was a racially motivated shooting. But let's talk about another claim, and that is that the ex-police officer Salter was targeted because he invented a car that uses water for fuel. So that claim is, it's true superficially that yes, he was researching that. That's one of the things that Salter was interested in, alternative energy sources. But let's talk about the water-fueled car itself. That claim is complete nonsense. First of all, Salter isn't the first person to come up with this idea. He's probably not even the 100th person to come up with this idea. This idea keeps cropping up over and over again because there are a lot of wannabe engineers out there who think that they've cracked the code of infinite energy. All you have to do is split water into oxygen and hydrogen, and then you burn the hydrogen back with oxygen to make energy. But of course, anybody with even a vague understanding of the laws of thermodynamics sees the problem there. The second law of thermodynamics says that in any process like that, you can't get 100% of the energy out that you put in, right? There's got to be some energy lost through entropy. So if you put X amount of energy in to split the water into hydrogen and oxygen, you get less than that amount of energy back when you burn the hydrogen back with oxygen. So these water burning cars still have a gasoline engine, right? They're not functioning just on water. You have a gasoline engine, which is actually what's making all the energy, right? Some of that energy is then being diverted to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, and then you get a smaller amount back by burning the hydrogen back with oxygen. It's just a waste. It's a waste of energy. It overcomplicates the process. But they convince themselves that they're driving the car partly on the hydrogen, and then they store the hydrogen for a while, and they could run it only on the hydrogen. Yeah, but you just stored energy that you created by burning gasoline. That doesn't mean you're running the car on the hydrogen that you got from the water. It means that you're just using it as a storage medium. That's it. Hydrogen is not a source of energy when you have to split it off of water. It's just a way of storing energy, right? That's like saying, "Oh, I'm running a car on a battery," Yeah, okay, but the battery's not the source of the energy. It's just what you're using to store the energy. The energy is still either coming from a gasoline engine that you're using to charge the battery, or you're plugging it in to the electrical grid and you're charging it that way. It's the exact same thing. You can edit that out, right? So there would be no reason to kill somebody, over an invention that doesn't work and is a threat to nothing, right? The saltwater car is a fiction. It is a crank idea that hundreds of cranks have come up with and that have all been shot down because of the second law of thermodynamics. So at its core, the claim that this person would be targeted by the CIA or whoever because he invented something that hundreds of other people invented before him and that doesn't work is nonsensical. It is not true. But I also want to address just that claim itself, that the powers that be, that some government agency or some men in black or whatever are going to target inventors who invent a technology that's too disruptive and kill them. as if that's going to suppress the technology. I don't think, first of all, that you understand how technology works, right? So do you think if, let's say, the water fuel cars were real, do you think killing one guy who's researching it is going to prevent that technology from getting out? If it functioned, first of all, he's not discovering magic. He's not discovering something that no other person could possibly discover, or that's so esoteric, like he's some kind of freakish genius, and if you kill them, all of that knowledge dies with them, right? That's nonsensical. If this basic technology were a good idea, anybody could produce it, right? Any company with just off-the-shelf technology can do it. Any country could be doing this. Anyone around the world with this basic off-the-shelf technology should be able to do it. Or you could have thousands of startup companies that could be reproducing this technology. There would be absolutely no way to keep a lid on it. It would be out there. So you have to simultaneously believe that this guy is some kind of Edison, Einstein, Tesla freakish genius. And again, his rare knowledge is going to somehow die with them if you manage to kill them. Maybe you have to kill a dozen other people too who are also getting too close to it, whatever. But again, this is a cartoon fantasy. This is not how technological advance works. Usually by the time a technology is ripe, by the time the prerequisite technologies are there, by the time it makes sense, it could get invented and reinvented over and over again by many, many different people. And often there are multiple competing claims of who invented it because a lot of people got there at the same time. You can't keep a lid on that. You absolutely can't keep a lid on it. But then I also want to address the other layer here, that the government would want to keep a lid on that. Why would we do that? If we had a technology that would provide free energy, essentially, right? If we're just getting energy from water, and that was going to solve, our gasoline problem, right? So we're no longer going to be putting CO2 into the air or pollution into the air. The government would save billions of dollars if this technology existed. Right? So then you have to believe what? That the fossil fuel industry is really running the government, or maybe they killed them as if they have the power to do it and they would get away with it because, if the government weren't in on it with them, they would probably find out that they're assassinating inventors all over the world, who are trying to bring the water-fueled car to power. Just think about it for 2 minutes, will you? Think through this claim. It makes absolutely no sense. The benefits to the world would be massive if the claim were true. Nobody would want to keep a lid on it. Nobody could keep a lid on it if the technology were ready. And the technology is BS. It doesn't work because of the laws of thermodynamics. That's why we're not driving water-fueled cars today, because they don't work. It's not a source of energy. You need to get the energy from somewhere else, like a gasoline car. These things always exist alongside a gasoline engine. Did you ever wonder why that was the case? It's because if you just put pure water into a gas tank, it won't work. You can't do it. You need an energy source to split the water into hydrogen and oxygen in the first place, which is a waste of time because you're just wasting energy when you do that. So this claim is nonsense on multiple different levels simultaneously. But I do wish that people would just think a little bit more deeply before endorsing this kind of cartoon villain movie narrative that is so common on TikTok that people who invent things that are too disruptive get targeted and killed. It's just not true. It's nonsense. Stop saying it. Think about it for just a minute.
We should put that on a shirt. Think about it for just
a minute. Yeah. Sure.
Think about it for just a minute. Oh, God.
All right.
Any other comments in the chat before?
Yeah, any quick comments, questions, feedback?
Feedback, la-di-da-di-da. Nikola Tesla. Somebody wanted Nikola Tesla's coleslaw. No, I'm just kidding. Nikola Tesla, what his claim to fame was. I mean, he was an inventor, right? I mean, he invented a bunch of interesting.
He worked with electricity. You know, he was a smart guy. He invented a lot of things, but
AC
the
power,
idea that
probably.
he like made some breakthroughs that we still haven't reproduced, decades later is nonsense. He's become like this cultural conspiracy theorist icon. But he was a kind of a quirky guy, but at the end of the day, he was just a regular researcher, inventor who did really good research. Just part of the community of researchers and scientists who were developing electronic, technology at the time.
Yeah. Oh, let me pop this one up on screen. Let me see if I can do that. Favorite part of the brain?
My favorite part of the brain?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I have a lot of favorite parts of the brain. Depends on how dirty an answer you want.
Okay.
I'm kind of partial to my executive function.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So people who are skeptical and distrustful of the government are not completely delusional? I mean...
Listen, you should be, there's healthy skepticism, right? You should be skeptical of any institution, of any claim to power, of any claim to authority. But that skepticism and doubt should be healthy. It should be reasonable, informed by evidence, informed by logic and reason. It shouldn't be knee-jerk and automatic and absolute. You shouldn't disbelieve something just because the government says it, because that's, again, that algorithm doesn't work either. That quickly breaks down. You're actually giving them quite a lot of power when you do that, right? Saying, I'm going to disbelieve anything they claim. So they have absolute control over what you believe then, is what you're saying. You're not actually thinking for yourself or thinking it through. I like to claim the opposite, but
yeah.
But I'm not saying believe whole turkey, like whatever any authority tells you either. No, you have to question everything, see what it's really based on, and also, like, you have to judge institutions for what they are, right? Politicians are not scientists, and they're not journalists. They're politicians. They pretty much spin and lie every time they move their lips. That's part of the job. Yeah. The press is, if you have good, my problem with journalism is not that they're lying or they're part of some conspiracy. It's that they're mostly mediocre. Like everything people do. Most things that most people do are mediocre almost by definition, right? But there are some great journalists out there that are doing their job, and finding things out. But also we have professional organizations, we have scientific organizations, we have academic organizations, we have watch groups and advocacy groups, whatever. The power is spread thin and with different perspectives and priorities, and you just hope that it kind of all keeps each other honest and comes out in the wash. But it doesn't mean that bad things can't happen. We have to be eternally vigilant, right? We have to keep ourselves well-informed. Democracy requires well-informed citizens. You have to dig pretty deep to get to the bottom of important stories, not just, I don't accept anyone's one perspective or version of what's going on. Again, most of the information out there is crap, so you got to look pretty deeply. But that doesn't mean there's some vast, grand, magical conspiracy going on with people who are diabolical and have like incredible levels of power that are impossible for people to have. That's what I object to. That's what I push back on. But this kind of cartoonish, childish, oh, you invented a really cool technology, they're going to kill you. Like, who's they? Why would they kill you? Why would that matter? None of it makes sense. But that's just one of those TikTok narratives that's so pervasive on TikTok. It's just really disappointing.
I don't think it lends credibility to how creative capitalism is for making money. Like, they could spin that invention and make a crazy amount of money. Like,
yeah,
it's not like it would break everything else.
Yeah, I mean, every system has its strengths and weaknesses. Has its perverse incentives, etc. Yeah. Capitalism isn't perfect. Socialism isn't perfect. Communism isn't perfect. It's all different. It's pick your poison, right? It's different strengths and weaknesses. But what we want to do is have a thoughtful system that cobbles together different components that then sort of keep each other in balance, So yeah, we want people who have a profit motive that motivates them to build a better mousetrap, to do things more efficiently, to do them better, to invent a better product, and they should get rewarded for their innovation. Yeah. But we want to make sure that they don't use a monopoly in order to distort the free market, or that they're not lying in order to promote their products, right? So we've got to regulate all this shit, because we know what people do when they're not regulated. They do whatever it will take to make money, basically. Like we don't need to guess. We have a massive amount of history to inform us what what the people in power will do when no one's looking over their shoulder, So we have to keep people honest as well. And we have to create and foment a culture of honesty and, civic duty and et cetera, et cetera. It's all very, very complicated. There's no simple answer to any of it.
Yeah, to the person, Tiana. Tiana can be here. Don't be mean, okay? Tiana can stay. We're not trying to make an echo chamber either. She was saying people have been assassinated for challenging oppressive systems. It's like, yeah,
people have been assassinated before. But yeah, I'm not saying no one's ever been assassinated for any reason. What I'm saying is, if you read like TikTok comments, there's all these videos about some implausible technology that doesn't exist, and then the comments fill with, "Oh, they're going to kill that guy," like that's like an automatic just assumption, and like this guy's just totally buying into this notion that if you invented a car that could use water as a fuel, the powers that be would kill you, and it makes no sense on any level.
Isn't there something to like the psychology of people? It's easier for them to accept this big claim than it being like a random act of violence.
Yeah, I think the scariest thing for people to realize is that no one's in control.
Yeah.
Right? No one's in control.
Yeah.
It's chaos.
The car is going down the hill with no one in the driver's seat.
Right. It's, it's collective, complicated, noisy, chaotic control at best. But there is no master control, right? In life. And that, I think, is so scary that some people would rather believe in malevolent entities in control than nobody's in control. Yeah. Right? Because at least then they could identify the enemy.
Yeah.
As who do you get mad at when the system just doesn't work? You know what I mean? It's like we're all kind of equally to blame. It's like, well, who do you vote for? And how much effort did you put into everything, whatever? It's like it's a lot harder to deal with the complexity of reality than a simplistic good versus evil, villain, hero narrative. So people default to the simple narrative. And I'm not saying that these things don't happen. It's just that narrative is not reality, right?
Yeah. I don't want to keep piling on Tiana, but she's made an interesting statement of like, where did it go? It might be a bit hyperbolic, but it's not deserving of the energy you're giving right now, which is an interesting comment. Perhaps we don't need to comment on everything on TikTok, which we don't. But
we don't.
We actively
I
filter
do
out a lot of
three videos
shit.
a week is like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to hit some big critical thinking themes to use these as examples of critical thinking, right?
Yeah.
Teaching like one principle, and this is just an example of that principle.
And it's not like this person.
We're not trying to play whack-a-mole and knock down every single false claim on TikTok. That's a loser's mission.
Yeah, there's the never-ending battle. But it's also not like this guy is like an unreachable person who made these ridiculous claims.
I don't care. I don't care about that one person.
Yeah.
I'm trying to model how you would think your way through these kind of claims.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, send her a free copy of the book.
Yeah. Send your address in the chat. No, just don't do that, please.
Yeah.
Please, God, don't
Dox yourself, and then we'll send you a free
please
book.
don't do that, please. Wouldn't extraterrestrial life fall under grand conspiracy? I mean, what, the cover-up of it?
If it were being covered up, if the aliens were here
Yeah.
and the governments were covering it up, that's a grand conspiracy theory. It's one that exists. I don't think that's true because you have to say that they've managed to be here without leaving any objective evidence around.
Yeah.
And if that were the case, again, that's kind of a self-refuting claim. At the very least, because you can't say, I know that this phenomenon with zero evidence exists.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, if there's zero evidence, how do you know it exists?
Right.
Then you have to say, I just know, I'm intuitive, I could see whatever. Or it's like, well, I happen to have personal, private access to evidence that I can't show you. It's like, go fuck yourself. You know you don't. Or you say, well, I can't prove it absolutely, but come on, look at all the smoke. There's got to be fire there. And then they're just engaging in bad logic, usually. But the bottom line is, there's no evidence. Like, that's the common ground. That's the thing you have to agree on. There is no objective evidence that aliens are visiting the Earth. If there were, I would believe it. If there was by definition, good, objective, compelling evidence, there just isn't. I think the big difference between believers and non-believers, one big difference is a lot, but one is what qualifies as compelling evidence. They're willing to accept, third-party, anecdotal, blurry, whatever, crappy levels of evidence that are so far below the normal standard of scientific evidence that you shouldn't reasonably accept it. But they're willing to accept that and find it compelling. Whereas just as a scientist, my response is, well, that's not good evidence. It's easier and better explained by other phenomenon, not aliens. I've written about that as the psychocultural hypothesis. Like it's that's what people do. They believe weird shit like that, and they make up evidence, and that it fits that kind of psychological phenomenon. It doesn't fit a phenomenon where there's actually aliens visiting the Earth. Right. And that's a very long conversation, which we have had multiple times on the show.
Shout out to Dr. Terry. You've never met my mother-in-law. Also, how you doing, Dr. Terry?
Right.
Yeah, okay, let's see if there's anything else. Anything else in the chat before we skedaddle? We've been here for a good 2.5 hours. That was pretty good. Oh, you know what? There was the Tesla valve. There's a little shot of the Tesla valve. That was something he invented. That was kind of cool. He was
a brilliant guy, very clever inventor.
Yeah, very clever. Pretty cool.
He didn't break the laws of physics, though.
He did not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Womp womp. Get around to breaking those laws.
Do you believe there should be a standard for beliefs? That's pretty much the entire skeptical movement in a nutshell, is that we advocate for there being standards before you believe stuff. Why not? If you believe stuff with no standard, that's kind of the definition of gullible, isn't it? Right? So that is scientific skepticism in a nutshell. You should have some kind of reasonable standard before you believe stuff, right? And if you choose to believe with no standard, that's faith, and you can do that. Go right ahead, but it ain't science, and you can't legislate it. You shouldn't be able to legislate it. You can't claim it's real. You can only claim it's your personal faith, right?
That's right. All right, so we'll see you again next week,
I
believe.
We'll keep going next week.
Yep, tag us in more videos if you see anything wacky on the TikTok or fun. There's some fun videos that people tag us. We don't always get to play them, but usually we play them earlier in the stream. But yeah, if you have something that has some meat on it for some skeptical inquiry or neurological stuff, especially for Steve, since he's a neurologist, that's fun to do. What time do you guys start? We try to start like
noon, right?
Noon, but we started like 11:30, I think. Actually, no,
why'd you guys start early?
45. I played that food guesser game with Jay a little early,
Okay.
and we were just guessing the locations of food.
Yeah, usually
dishes.
noon. I
Those are
may
not great.
join them a little later because I gotta have patience in the morning.
Yeah, so we usually get the chat all warmed up and ready for skepticism. Yeah, that's Eastern time.
Eastern
We
time,
are
yeah.
East
That's the only
Coasters.
time that there is, isn't there?
You can't tell by our accents that we're East Coasters over here.
Yeah, we're talking about New York time over here, right?
Yeah, where the world is. You guys helped me to think more skeptically. I've been listening since before Perry passed. Wow, so way back in the day.
That's
good to have you. And we're almost at the 1,000th
17 years
episode.
ago.
Oh, so somebody asked, the 1,000th episode is being recorded in Chicago, but
Yes.
it's not actually released for like a month or two later, right?
No, it'll be released probably the following week. The following
really?
Wednesday.
Because somebody said they counted, and that wouldn't actually be the 1,000th episode. Either way, we'll make it the 1,000th episode.
Yeah, it's not the one that's being released that day. That one we are recording is the 1,000th episode.
Yeah, either way. So if you're coming to Chicago, you will be there live in person recording the 1,000th episode with us. So get your tickets. The private show hasn't gone on sale yet, but it'll be at theskepticsguide.org, which I have a title card for that somewhere, and I don't know where it is. Well, anyway, it exists. So that's that. Oh, yeah, there it is. Copy, and I'll put it in here. Boop. SG website. Boom. Theskepticsguide.org. Look at that. Boom. So you can come to Indiana. I mean, that's how close.
We'll come anywhere.
Yeah, well, that's close to Illinois. We're thinking Canada too somewhere. We're trying to figure out if you any Canadians or Quebecers or Montrealers or whatever, hit us up. Let us know if there's like a skeptical group or whatever, if there's interest. I think that's it. Anything else?
That's it.
Toronto. Yeah, that's a good one too. We'll think about it.
We'll see you guys
talk
next
to it.
week.
See you next week. Bye-bye. Have you talked about GMO purple tomatoes? I bought seeds. No, I don't think so, right? GMO
Purple tomatoes?
We'll look into it. That's fun.
Well, GMO purple tomatoes. Okay.
Aren't there not a lot of GMO tomatoes, or is it potatoes?
There were,
Or I forget.
there were no commercially available GMO tomatoes unless one just came out.
Yeah, so maybe it's new.
There
All
was one, a Flavor Saver, like in the 90s, but they went off the market,
I
and there
remember
hasn't
that
been
one,
one for
yeah.
20 years. There may be one come out recently, but I haven't looked into it yet.
Yeah, we'll check it out. All right, tag us and stuff. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.